Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
You might have to carry that over a little bit more. Madam Speaker, I start my presentation with my mask on. I don't intend to wear it through the entire presentation, but just as a symbolic reminder that even though we are seeing vaccines arrive, that we are not at the end of the pandemic. So we still have to maintain the infection prevention and control protocols. Madam Speaker, members of this Honourable House, Jamaicans and friends joining us locally and overseas, I rise to address the nation in this budget debate for a sixth time as Prime Minister. We give God thanks for sparing our lives through the unprecedented travails of 2020 for us to see this day. And Madam Speaker, we spare a thought for Darren Wood, Councillor of the Ferry Hill Division in Portland, who passed today. The pandemic has brought home the fickleness and fleeting nature of life. Madam Speaker, this is your second time occupying the Speaker's chair. The Leader of the Opposition tells me that you are even-handed and judicious in the management of the proceedings of the House. Our acting clerk, Ms. Valerie Curtis, is deserving of acknowledgement, giving excellent service to the House for 26 years. Parliament is attracting more women into the House. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Labour Party made it a policy to recruit and place more women before the electorate. And the electorate obviously has approved. We now have more women in Parliament than ever before. Madam Speaker, I can tell you that female MPs are more diligent. They are compassionate and patient. And they are more organized. I can tell you that because my wife is one of them. And I of course acknowledge Mrs. Holness as the Deputy Speaker of the House. And of course, how can I forget the Honorable Minister of Gender, Culture, Entertainment and Sports, who is the Deputy Leader of Government Business in the House. Madam Speaker, Parliament is attracting more viewership than ever before. How we conduct ourselves in language and mannerisms is under increasing scrutiny. Like it or not, we are role models for the youth watching. We must not descend to the lowest level to make our representations. We can be strident without being obstreperous. The people look to their representatives for elevation, upliftment, and dignity. Madam Speaker, I know that you will see to the maintenance of decorum in the House. Madam Speaker, we all agree that Parliament needs to exercise greater oversight of government policy. However, it is an incomplete view of parliamentary democracy which suggests it is only the opposition by leading sessional committees that keeps the executive in check. The backbench has an important role to play in leading the charge for oversight, particularly on the achievement of policy goals and targets in public bodies and agencies. To this end, I have arranged training for the government caucus of backbenchers in parliamentary governance. And this training is ongoing as we speak at the University of McGill in Canada, online. To be clear, this is not from government resources. This is our internal initiative to ensure that our new MPs who form the backbench understand parliamentary governance, parliamentary procedures, and indeed, the truth is, Madam Speaker, the people return to the House their choice. But it is not always the case that their choice would have all the skills at the outset to carry this job through. The general public may believe that we just come here every day and bang desks. No. You have to be able to read a financial statement. You should be able to go through a policy and figure out whether the policy is equitable, whether the policy was well researched. Madam Speaker, you should be able to prepare a presentation. You have to be able to write projects and make representation for those projects. So the job of an MP is not one that should be looked down on and thought of as, just we're here behaving boisterously. There is serious work to be done. And the point of fact is that, the Parliament as it is now structured, and I'm certain the opposition will agree with this, is just not sufficient to carry out the level of work that is required. So, Madam Speaker, it is evident that with 16 sessional committees and several ad hoc committees, this building does not have the facility to properly accommodate a fully functioning parliamentary committee system. Neither does the Parliament have the administrative capacity to support multiple committees meeting simultaneously. Nevertheless, the business of the nation cannot be stalled. Committees that are empaneled under the standing orders must start working on their subject matter and review materials, even if they don't have hearings. By the end of June, I am mandating that all sessional committees must have at least one meeting, whether in person or virtually, given the COVID constraints. I've also tasked the leader of government business, who now has parliamentary affairs attached to his portfolio, to immediately and expeditiously undertake a comprehensive review of the system of sessional committees and make recommendations as to the resources needed to improve their effective functioning in the short term. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to report that detailed designs and drawings of the new Parliament are complete. And building approvals have been granted by the various authorities. The project is now going through the public investment process, after which we expect to enter the procurement phase, and then after that, the construction phase, which we expect to start in early financial year 22-23. That's financial year to come, the next financial year. Madam Speaker, as we assemble as a Parliament, we reflect on the hardship and sacrifice of the people during this pandemic. We acknowledge those who put their lives at risk every day to serve us. Our healthcare workers and professionals who work tirelessly on the front line, caring for us in hospitals, manning quarantine areas, screening passengers at airports, testing, conducting surveillance and contact tracing in communities, and now administering vaccines nationally. Today, on behalf of all Jamaicans, I say thank you. It is appropriate to acknowledge the Jamaican diaspora, many of whom are watching online from all over the world. Amid the lockdowns and job losses, which undoubtedly affected them as well, they continue to support their family and loved ones back home, oftentimes increasing the amount and frequency of their remittances. Madam Speaker, I want to acknowledge the work and partnership of the Jamaican private sector during the pandemic. Corporate entities have foregone the benefit of the removal of the asset tax. Some have put in place various deferral and relief programs for customers. Others have made significant cash and kind contributions to various efforts. They have given up their time and effort working side by side with government officials on numerous ad hoc and established committees, such as the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force, developing and deploying various solutions and policy initiatives. However, we must never forget the hundreds of regular businesses, small businesses, who have kept their staff on payroll, even as economic activity has fallen. This has kept thousands going during this difficult time. Madam Speaker, just to depart from my script briefly, to associate with a point raised by the leader of the opposition about inequality in Jamaica. Inequality is far too high. The challenge, obviously, is historical. But, you know, we have to also commend our society, because in the midst of the inequality, we have a society that has a high sense of social justice. And our private sector, whether it is the formal corporate businesses or just small businesses, they do see the duty to give back. And we have to acknowledge that, because that spirit what has kept the society balanced. Because in any other country with such inequalities, without that sense of the informal giving, so we acknowledge it and we encourage it and we promote it, not as a replacement for genuine improvement in our standard of living and equality in the society, but it is still important. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the hundreds of thousands of members of the church community and the leadership of the church who have been very understanding of the necessity of the measures that have affected how they worship. Most established churches have exhibited a high level of compliance. Undoubtedly, there have been some smaller congregations and independent clergy who have at times disregarded protocols. However, in general, the churches, and in particular the established leadership bodies, have been very willing partners in managing in one area of Jamaican life that accounts for significant gatherings every Sabbath and every Sunday. Madam Speaker, the Jamaican people have been understanding and enduring and resilient during these difficult and unprecedented times. A favorite communication strategy of politicians, and I don't profess to be excluded from this, during these debates, is to highlight the personal, everyday struggles of an individual and use it as a metaphorical anecdote of the broader hardship and suffering of the people. The struggle of the people who have lost their livelihoods or had to close their business, personified in Yvonne, the household worker who lost some of her day's work and her children unable to connect to school online because they are without devices. In Anthony the farmer, in St. Anne, or the unnamed vendor who prior to COVID made a living selling bag juice at a school which is now closed. These, coming to Joe.
That's at a different place.
These representative stories must be told. They must be told. And be debated in this forum. Indeed, we must never forget the poor and the marginalized. People must be the center of policy. It is important that our constituents understand that we are aware and we understand the struggles they face, which are now made worse by the pandemic. However, politicians should do more than just playing politics with poverty. Parliament must do more than just talking about the struggles of the poor. Governments should not add to the burdens and struggles of the people because of bad policy and maladministration. For decades, the struggling people of Jamaica tuned into these budget debates with great trepidation and fear that a new set of taxes will be added onto their baskets of burdens. Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to say that this administration has not added to the tax burden of the people. Jamaica, it is no ordinary achievement, given our high debt profile of our public finances and the significant impact of the pandemic on our economy, that we can deliver a budget in the midst of crisis and say, no new taxes. But, Madam Speaker, more than no new taxes is the fact that we have been able to say we are giving back taxes to the people, making their burdens lighter. We care not in words, but in deeds. We have instituted the largest emergency social support program in the history of Jamaica, the We Care program. Which great credit must go to the minister, the very able Minister of Finance. Which last year gave over $10 billion of direct cash support in a structured and accountable way to persons who lost income and livelihoods or who were otherwise economically vulnerable. And in this budget, we have continued the We Care program with $8.1 billion in various targeted cash givebacks and support modalities. This is within the larger $60 billion social and economic recovery and vaccine for Jamaica program, the SERVE program, which is designed to support Jamaica's faster, stronger, and better recovery from the pandemic. Through good policy and better management of public finances, we have been able to give back to the people, lightening their burdens, allowing them to keep more of their pay by increasing the income tax threshold to 1.5. Don't forget that. Reducing transfer tax, removing asset tax. Shouldn't forget that. And we should not forget that last year we returned $14 billion to the people by reducing GCT by 1.5%. For the first time in a long time, Anthony the farmer and Yvonne the day's worker did not have to worry that their government would cost them more and increase their burdens. As bad as things have been during the pandemic, Miss Dorothy, the retired midwife, Marlon, the taximan, and Valerie, the room attendant at the hotel, knows that we are right there with them in the struggle, making the burden lighter, not just talking about our professed love for the poor, but demonstrating meaningful care and tangible solidarity with the hard-working people of this country who fight the good struggle every day to achieve their prosperity. Madam Speaker, the narrative of those who would seek to use poverty for political gains assert that nothing is happening in Jamaica, no progress is being made in the perpetual struggle of the masses for economic freedom and development. This is not the case. In the last survey of living conditions, 2018 recorded a poverty rate of 12.6%, a decline of 6.7 percentage points. And the lowest rate recorded since 2008. Today, as presented in the budget, every Jamaican is reaping the dividends of sacrifices made since 2009 and the commitment to fiscal discipline and strong public administration. Jamaica today is in a far better place than we were 10 years ago. we must admit that at the individual level, the feeling of progress may not be evenly experienced. And this is part of the perpetual struggle for personal prosperity. We encourage people to stay in the fight. You know, the leader of the opposition read out a very well-written letter of a young lady, you know, who was a WhatsApp. And very touching, and I get my fair share of those. And I would say to the leader of the opposition, encourage her not to give up. Help her. Help her. Help her. But struggle is a part of life. See, the problem is, Madam Speaker, is that we confuse struggle with suffering. And once you start to do that, then the business of self-pity come in. I struggle every day. It's a good struggle. We're struggling to overcome.
But not a sufferer.
So yes, we are not all equal, but we are never stopping our aspiration. We are never stopping our ambition, and we are never going to give up on life. So, Madam Speaker, the Jamaican state is in a far better position today than 10 years ago. And that is demonstrated in our ability that even in a pandemic, that we can give cash transfers. We can make real social investment in education, health, housing, and security. Something that would be unheard of before. Madam Speaker, the narrative of the politics of poverty does not highlight the enterprise, industry, and creativity of the people in the struggle for their prosperity. It strips the people of their agency, their right, independence, responsibility, and desire to find solutions to their own problems and overcome in the struggle of life. You see, Madam Speaker, the political philosophy of the Jamaica Labour Party is that we believe that people have agency. Absolutely. Meaning that they can determine their own fate. They can take instrumental action to better themselves. The deep and abiding principle of that is that from your labor, you can create wealth. From your labor, you will eat bread. We believe in the potential of the people. Our job is not to share up the wealth and give it to them. Our job is to help them to create the wealth for themselves. We on this side don't believe in the raid the barn philosophy. No, we are the ones who plant the corn. Madam Speaker, the politics of poverty portrays our people as helpless, hopeless, and hapless, just waiting for government or some foreign entity some external entity to provide the solution. While we accept that dependency and victimhood is still a part of our culture, most Jamaicans are ambitious, some overly ambitious, and are not waiting on the government to find solutions. They are creative, and they are finding solutions to their own problems. They are finding ways to adapt and bridge gaps. Like Karen King, principal of the Little Bay Primary School in Westmoreland, who ensured that the students in remote areas had access to lessons by personally delivering and collecting, sometimes on the back of a motorcycle, specially printed worksheets. Like Tanika McCoy Phipps, a teacher at Union Gardens Primary that I believe is in the constituency of Southwest, St. Andrew. You know, she was a particularly touching story. I met with her. She, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Prime Minister's time be extended sufficiently for him to complete the presentation today. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that the Prime Minister's time be extended sufficiently to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor?
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, members, for the extension. At the point of the break, Madam Speaker, I was bringing to your attention Tanika McCoy Phipps, a teacher at Union Gardens Primary, who was concerned for her children running about the community unsupervised when her school was closed. She took it upon herself to create notice boards in the surrounding communities on which she assisted with her daughters, and I met her daughters. It's a lovely family of teachers. Wrote down daily lesson plans and lessons for children or parents to copy and use. She also mobilized parents to give them support and training on how to teach and stimulate their young children. Principal King and teacher Phipps did not only complain about the digital divide or allow the absence of internet access to prevent their children from learning. They took responsibility, exercised agency, and independently developed and executed solutions. Hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans are doing that every day in their own little way. The story of our struggle is not only about hardship and failure, but also about our determination, instrumentality, and the victories that we have had. These stories must also be told in this House for the completeness of the narrative about the Jamaican struggle. Madam Speaker, the COVID pandemic has had a profoundly negative impact on our economy. We have lost 511 lives. Every life lost is one too many. I offer my deep condolences to all those who have lost a family member or a friend or a colleague. The pandemic and the measures designed to tackle it have had a dramatic effect on economic activity. PIOJ projects that our economy contracted, or projected that our economy contracted 10.2% for the calendar year 2020 and 12% for the fiscal year ending 31st of March 2021. This is the largest annual decline on record and was the first annual contraction since 2012. The economic decline in 2020-2021 was driven by a massive 70% contraction in our tourist industry, as pointed out graphically by Minister Clark in his presentation. The pandemic has decimated our foreign exchange inflows from tourism, which are projected to fall by 74%, or $2.5 billion US. Again, this level of fallout is unprecedented in our history. I don't believe that the oil price shocks caused that, or the fallout in bauxite revenues caused that in the 80s. I'm not even sure if the FinSac meltdown caused that. And certainly the global recession of 2009 did not cause that. So I'm just saying this so that we get the full narrative of the context of the challenges that face the government and the people. The economic decline has also resulted in a massive fallout in government revenues to the tune of $70 billion, or 12% as compared to the previous fiscal year. $70 billion. That's what we are, just little under what we are spending on the Jamaica Serve program. We have lost all of that, but we are still spending. At the same time, expenditures increased. Approximately $40 billion was spent by central government on the CARE program. Health expenditure, support for public bodies affected by pandemic, and incremental compensation expenditures, particularly in health and security. This $40 billion does not include the expenditures on programs implemented by the NHT and other public bodies to help cushion the impact of the pandemic. Madam Speaker, in relation to the CARE program, the speed of the response is worth noting. Literally 14 days after Jamaica had its first case of COVID-19, this program was announced. It is also noteworthy that the program was administered with the highest degree of transparency and probity. Every Jamaican that met the criteria had equal access to the benefits, irrespective of race, class, gender, or political affiliation. Madam Speaker, the program was also clearly demonstrated the benefits of digitization. The application process was entirely online. Over 400,000 Jamaicans applied from their mobile phones, tablets, or computers. And I know many of us in here became digital literacy teachers. Madam Speaker, no previous administration in Jamaica has ever faced a health and an economic crisis of this magnitude, and at the same time, these crises have tested our mettle as a government and as a people. But we have shown courage, dexterity in management, and incredible resilience, of which we can justly be proud as a country. I am confident that we will recover faster, stronger, and better than before. Madam Speaker, despite the pandemic, the construction sector has grown. While the sector was hit hard during April to June 2020 and declined by 14.5%, it grew by 7% in July to September quarter, and is forecasted by PIOJ to grow by 6.2% in the October to December 2020 quarter. More new companies and new businesses were registered in the 2021 financial year than ever before in our history. And this says something about what is happening with small businesses and people seeking to formalize themselves in the economy. The unemployment rate, which had moved from a low of 7.2% in October 2019 to 12.7% in July 2020, has already started to decline to 10.7% as at October 2020. Good sign. Still very high, but Madam Speaker, trending in the right direction. Remittance inflows grew by 600 million, a 23% increase over the previous year, and Minister Clark explained that. Our current account deficit is estimated to be flat at 1.7% of GDP for 2020-2021 versus 1.6% of GDP in 2019-2020. Madam Speaker, what this means is that even though we lost 2.5 billion in foreign exchange earnings from our tourism export, and I use it in that way, because it's an export. We don't think of it as an export, but tourism is an export. That there was only a marginal increase in the difference between our total inflows from exports and other earnings and what we spend on imports and other outflows. This shows an economy that is developing the ability to absorb shocks. Our net international reserves have been maintained at a robust level of over $3 billion US. The amount of public debt has remained flat over the year despite the massive fallout in government revenue and increase in government expenditure. Madam Speaker, Jamaica is among only a few countries that have been able to achieve this. Governments globally issued a record 16.3 trillion in new debt in 2020 and are expected to borrow another 12.6 trillion US dollars this year. So countries are borrowing to cushion the blow of the pandemic. The question is, should Jamaica borrow? And I'll come to that. The highest credit rating that Jamaica has had in 20 years from Standard & Poor's and in the 14 years from Fitch have thus far maintained, while many other countries have suffered downgrades. The two things don't work together. Increasing your debt and maintaining your ratings. It is a dangerous path to suggest. Madam Speaker, maintaining our macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability in the face of the most severe health and economic crisis the world has ever seen in nearly 100 years did not happen by chance. We were able to do this because our buffers that we had built up over prudent fiscal management over a number of years, those buffers gave us the cushion. We opened the 2020-2021 fiscal year with cash reserves of approximately $90 billion. When the COVID-19 pandemic came, we were able to finance a 3.5% fiscal deficit with our nominal debt virtually flat. Madam Speaker, as there has been quite a lot of misinformation in the public domain regarding devaluation of the currency, let us examine, and I invite members and those listening to look at this simply illustrated chart. Let us examine the exchange rate data going back to the year of my birth, 1972, across different political administration. The analysis shows that the annual percentage devaluation over the last 5 years is 3.8% over the term of this administration. It was more than 2 times higher at 8.5% in the previous administration. So for us, for this administration, 3.8%. That's the magnitude of the devaluation. In the previous administration, the PNP administration, 8.5%.
Right.
Over the past 5 years of this administration, the rate of devaluation is the lowest of any administration since 1972. And this was achieved in the face of course, the worst economic crisis in our history, during which our foreign exchange inflows from tourism declined by $2.5 billion. Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition stated that the profits of the Bank of Jamaica, which will be paid as dividends of 33 billion Jamaican dollars to the consolidated fund for the benefit of the people of Jamaica, arose mainly as a result of devaluation of the currency. Madam Speaker, there was 40.7% devaluation of the currency under the previous administration, the PNP administration. Between 1989 and 2007, the Jamaican dollar went from $5.51 to $70.41 to a US dollar, a 1,178% devaluation, representing an average devaluation rate of 15% yearly. This means that the Bank of Jamaica, during their time, would have had even greater foreign exchange gains during their time. The question then is, where are the dividends? Where is the profit?
What are they doing?
The leader of the opposition said it is a tax. The devaluation is a tax. What is that? We drop the big tax on the people. You have been taxing the people. Madam Speaker, good policy matters. Madam Speaker, I have heard the calls from the opposition for the government to spend a further $21.3 billion, and calls from other quarters are for the government to spend an additional $40 billion on various social support programs. If we had the revenues and our debt to GDP ratio was low, of course we would go deeper into a counter-cyclical spending program to stimulate the economy and give further cushion to the vulnerable. To be clear, we have suspended our fiscal targets and adjusted our primary surplus to allow for the expenditure of the $60 billion under the social and economic recovery and vaccines for Jamaica program, SERVE program. This, however, is the maximum we can do without throwing us back into a debt trap, especially when our debt is already too high to begin with. What is being proposed by the opposition is that we borrow more in order to pay our interest costs. In other words, forget about the 10 years of sacrifice. Forget about the fiscal discipline that we all agree to. What is a little bit confusing is that when we came and explained that we are doing this with great reluctance, but we had to do it, on this side, there was some disagreement that we shouldn't. And then now I'm hearing the opposite, that not only should we just tweak it, we should just throw away any prudence with the rule. So, conflicting message. But when the person is in the house, I will raise it. Madam Speaker, this is precisely how a vicious debt spiral begins, leading to an increase in our debt again to unsustainable levels, undermining the credibility of government's fiscal policy, putting our international credit ratings at risk, and ultimately threatening the prospects of recovery that every Jamaican household is anticipating. Madam Speaker, we can return to growth without unsustainably increasing our borrowing. We must get our people vaccinated so we can rapidly return our economy to full operation. Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the management of the COVID-19 pandemic. Managing the pandemic is like walking a tightrope. It requires balance through flexibility, focus, and timing. To achieve this balanced outcome, my government established consistent principles that we would follow in making decisions regarding the mix of measures that would be employed at any time. And these principles are: 1, being evidence-based, meaning that the government would not take knee-jerk actions or act out of political expediency. Its response must be rooted in evidence and science. 2, being situationally appropriate, meaning we would not rely solely on generalized measures, but we would also tailor measures to fit circumstances. For example, if we found evidence that some schools, by virtue of their special circumstances, could be reopened with low risk, then we would tailor measures around these circumstances to allow their reopening. And you would have seen us doing that, crafting measures around special circumstances to maximize the normalcy in the economy. And then 3rd, being proportionate, meaning that the extent and restrictiveness of measures imposed would be no more than is sufficient to control the potential threat and prevent risks from materializing. It also means that we would be gradual, that we would try it first, and then if it works, we scale it up. And that is how we have operated consistently through the pandemic. Between March and August 2020, we managed to keep our daily confirmed cases well below 100 and closer to 50, thereby flattening the curve and keeping well within the capacity of the public health system to respond. We acted early and extensively. Recall that we closed our borders, implemented tight curfews, as tight as 3 p.m. on holidays. All schools were closed, bars and places of amusement were closed. We asked churches to worship online. Some communities and an entire parish were placed under strict quarantine for periods, and restaurants were restricted to takeout only. This came at great economic cost and was not practical or sustainable. In May 2020, the Cabinet took a decision to reopen our economy using a risk-based approach, balancing the risks to lives and the risks to livelihoods, as I outlined earlier. We meticulously went about crafting measures that we based on data and scientific advice, tailored to situations and sufficient to mitigate risks. This allowed us to reopen churches in May 2020, followed by community bars, restaurants, horse racing and gaming. These reopenings were supported by progressively reduced curfew hours, moving from the 6 p.m. through to 6 a.m. curfew, the dusk till dawn curfew, to the 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. We opened our borders on June 1, 2020 to allow for the controlled re-entry of our nationals and residents. On June 15, 2020, we opened our borders to international travelers under a program of controlled entry, which involved testing, screening, quarantine, and registration on the Jam COVID app or the Visit Jamaica website. This was further supported by the creation of the Resilience Corridor. In the 10 months since the controlled entry program has been in place, 525,727 persons have arrived in Jamaica. 117,569 are residents, and 408,727 are visitors, including business travelers and tourists. We Madam Speaker, we had to do this. Had we not done this, the fallout in tourism revenues would have been 100% instead of 75%. The little uptick that you're seeing in employment, it would be going in the wrong direction. So, Madam Speaker, our balance of payment deficit would have been worse. Government revenues would have been further threatened. And there would be no argument in this budget about spending more. Madam Speaker, the decision to gradually reopen the economy meant that in tandem, we would also increase the capacity of the health system to cope with increasing numbers. I hope I have a figure, a chart that I'd ask members to cast your eyes to. It can be seen that in March 2020, before the first case, we started with an initial bed capacity of 15 and increased that rapidly to 150. We continued to gradually increase capacity until September 2020, when our COVID reserved beds went up to approximately 350. In March 2021, we again almost doubled capacity to now having 600 beds designated to the treatment of COVID patients. Madam Speaker, for almost a year, and you can see it there on the graph where the blue represents the daily cases and the orange line representing the number of beds available at any one time. For almost a year, we kept our hospitalization curve, that is the blue, below our bed capacity, which was always the strategic plan of the government. Flatten the curve and protect the healthcare system. And we did that. Upon entering community spread in September 2020, the second wave of increased hospitalization followed. And we came close to exhausting capacity, but it did not overwhelm us, as you can see, there between September and October and November. We had an increase in October, but it petered out because of measures that we had put in place. We reinstated tighter measures, which reduced infections and stabilized the number of hospitalizations to well below capacity. We managed to maintain this position through Christmas and up to the first week of February. We are now experiencing a third wave of increasing infection spread, which is much larger than before and more dangerous in terms of the threat to life because of the associated hospitalization numbers. Hospitalization now exceeds bed capacity by as much as 15% in some instances. This means that someone who needs to be taken into a ward may not have a bed readily available and may have to wait. This places great stress on our already overburdened doctors and nurses. It potentially could impact the mortality rate. More persons could die. Madam Speaker, the current set of measures expire on the 22nd of this month. With hospitalization numbers continuing to exceed capacity, daily positivity rate in the range of 30%, and our estimated infection reproduction rate continuing above 1, I will be announcing a new set of stronger measures designed to protect our healthcare system and save lives in the short term, which eventually protects and preserves our economy and livelihoods in the long term. Madam Speaker, today the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development tabled amendments to the Disaster Risk Management Act, as promised, to implement the new ticketing system for enforcement of infection prevention and control measures. The government is prepared to have the bill reviewed by a joint select committee over the weekend and debate and pass the bill next week if the opposition is willing. This would make the new measures more effective if we have this amendment in place. Madam Speaker, not only did we increase bed capacity, we also invested in our testing and scientific analysis capabilities during the pandemic. Last year, the Chase Fund financed high-capacity testing equipment and supplies for the National Influenza Center. This equipment significantly enhanced the country's capacity to test for COVID-19 and other viruses, and to quickly and accurately turn around the results. And this is partially a part of the reason why you would have seen the increase in testing. I mean, the opposition has been saying we need to test more. We have done it. But as you know, there comes a point where no matter how much more you test, the results are going to be the same. Viruses are constantly changing, leading to the emergence of new variants that may have different characteristics. Since late 2020, multiple variants of the SARS-CoV-2 have been detected, and some variants may be easier to transmit and cause more severe disease. Earlier this year, we sent several samples for testing to a regional facility to determine whether the UK variant is present in Jamaica. The results took an extended time to be delivered. Jamaica must have the instant capability to determine the variants of viruses present in our population as part of our routine public health surveillance. I'm going to share with you a little bit of parliamentary cooperation. When I came to the House a few weeks ago, the member from St. Mary Central, I believe you are still the opposition spokesman on health, sent me a little note that we should buy one of these genome sequencers. And I went about looking, what is this sequencer, asked questions, consulted, and it's something that's doable. And we spoke about it, the Minister of Health, and Chase has been directed to fund the acquisition of a genome sequencer and the requisite accessories and reagents. So this business that the government doesn't talk to the opposition. Not to go so.
We would take guidance, we would take advice.
Madam Speaker, on March 8, 2021, we welcomed our first shipment of 50,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine donated by the Government of India. I want to express deep appreciation to the people of India for this extremely kind gesture and show of global solidarity. Madam Speaker, later I will express my gratitude to Prime Minister Modi. On March 15, 2021, Jamaica became the first country in the region to receive supplies of 14,400 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from the COVAX facility. So all the talk you hear about we're not doing anything and we're moving slow, and Jamaica is the first country in the region to receive from the COVAX facility. That means something, because I am on the phone with colleague prime ministers asking me, what is happening in Jamaica? And when I say, what is happening in your country? I'm calling the country name. Why we can't get no vaccine? The situation is not unique to Jamaica.
Parlous, but not unique.
And if you look at some of the other countries, and you see the challenge we face is that, you know, Jamaica is in such a unique position. We are not too small, and we're not too big. So it's kind of sometimes very difficult to place us in a policy category. I mean, what is required to vaccinate a country of 400,000 or 200,000 or 70,000 is not what is required to vaccinate a country of 3 million people. So you can't compare us with others. Anyway, thankfully, these vaccines are now being administered across the island according to the established priority groups published by the Ministry of Health. Madam Speaker, with only 64,400 doses of the vaccine in hand and a second dose required for full effectiveness, we must be very strategic and fair in how we distribute the vaccines. I am well aware of the history of the distribution of scarce goods in Jamaica. I am extremely sensitive to the deeply embedded perceptions in the minds of our people that politicians and connected persons will get the vaccine before those who truly need it. I'm also sensitive to the cause that the national leaders should take the vaccine first as a sign of reassurance that they have confidence in the medicine that we are asking you to take. Indeed, the leader of the opposition will confirm that I extended an invitation to him to receive the vaccine with me and other national leaders immediately as the vaccines were ready to be administered after arrival. And I believe we had agreement. Madam Speaker, later that night, I received several calls, including from leading health professionals, and I'm not saying that the leader of the opposition is in fact those two separate things, but I've received two separate things, and I'm sure you received those calls as well. People saying, disagreeing vehemently that young, fit politicians should not get the vaccine before elderly people.
Saying that you young and fit now?
So several doctors called, several other well-placed health professionals objecting to this. Madam Speaker, I am 49 years old. This year, I still consider myself among the group of young politicians. So I reflected on what was said to me directly and the commentaries in media. Indeed, I noticed some articles being placed in the newspaper. I noticed some, tweets and posting on social media. We even got questions from journalists. So we knew what was building to come. So I discussed with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and we agreed that we would make it clear that the principle of equity in distribution must not be compromised. given that there is more than enough demand for the 64,000 doses of the vaccines on hand presently, the important assurance and example then must be that the vaccines will be equitably distributed. And not just equitably, but orderly and strategically to protect the healthcare system, reduce hospitalization, and reduce deaths among vulnerable population. Already, Minister of Health, how many persons have been vaccinated already? Over 17,000. I had 16. I had 16 in my speech, but I figured that by the time I'm speaking, you would be at over. So 17,000 plus healthcare workers, elderly, and security forces have been vaccinated. That supply, in a matter of weeks, is going to be depleted. So, with a limited supply of vaccines, the first group to be inoculated should be our healthcare workers. Even that set, those 60 and over with comorbidities should be prioritized, and then you work down to the younger, healthier persons. Getting healthcare workers vaccinated first ensures that the health system can continue to serve the population with less worry for personal exposure and loss of capacity due to illness and death. And Madam Speaker, I pause here, as the Leader of the Opposition did, to recognize our debt of gratitude to the healthcare workers, those who have lost their lives. After healthcare workers, the demographic that exhibits the highest vulnerability to the disease should be vaccinated. The global mortality rate for COVID-19 is around 2%. In Jamaica, the case fatality rate is 1.5% on average. However, 3.7% of those who contract the disease in the age group 60 to 69 have died, and they account for 20.9% of all deaths. 7.3% of persons who contract the disease in the age group 70 to 79 have died, and they account for 24.5% of all deaths. 12% of those who contract the disease in the age group 80 to 89 have died, and they account for 19.6% of all deaths. Clearly, to reduce the risk of loss of life and hospitalization, the population 60 years and over should be the priority focus after healthcare workers. For those who harbor fears of the vaccine, the case fatality statistics speak for themselves. Take the vaccine. Madam Speaker, I intend to get vaccinated. But like the Leader of the Opposition said in his presentation, I will wait my turn, in keeping with the prioritization order set. Some public officials, including ministers and MPs in the 60 and over age group, have been vaccinated. I will be taking my vaccination along, and some members of Parliament have been vaccinated too. Yeah. I will be taking my vaccination, and the Leader of the Opposition is welcome to join me, because that is the group with what is called the frontline public sector workers and government officials. So what that group is, and there was some confusion about that, 5,900 persons thereabout. So that group involves those persons who are considered frontline in the public sector. Who are these persons? They are the receptionists, they are the drivers, they are the bearers, they are the cashiers, they are the persons who do precisely, the persons who are customer facing. Why? Simple reason. Science, good science behind it. These people cannot work from home. And they don't have a choice. They have to come to work and they have to serve the public. So you want to get them inoculated first. In addition to that group as well would be the government, what we call the government officials, which would be the remaining parliamentarians who have to face the public as well, the councillors who have to face the public as well, and the heads of agencies who they need to be able to man the operations of whatever agency they head, and they need to be able to move in and out. So I will be getting my vaccination in that group. That group comes when we are clear that the healthcare workers have been vaccinated, that we have reached the tail end of the police and the soldiers, and then we start. Note, however, that persons 60 and over are currently being vaccinated in parallel to all these groups and will continue to be vaccinated. Madam Speaker, I will have some more to say about how the vaccines should be managed and the rules around it. I saw one report about theft. I haven't been able to confirm whether or not this is so, but we are going to ensure that the vaccines are properly managed, because these are not, they are not all gifts. This is and even if they are gifts, even more reason why we have to make sure that they are properly managed. Yes. Madam Speaker, there is a global shortage of vaccine. Production capacity has not yet caught up with demand, and the capacity that exists has been reserved by rich countries. We have commitments by virtue of our participation in the global COVAX facility and the African Medical Supplies Platform. However, we are always mindful that the supply situation is dynamic and may change suddenly. Jamaica is also pursuing both bilateral and commercial options to acquire vaccines. Orders that have been negotiated require lead time of several weeks to be delivered, and the situation here is even more uncertain. However, we expect to continue receiving small amounts, but sufficient supplies to keep our vaccination program active. The supply situation should begin to stabilize and have greater certainty in June as more vaccines are approved by the WHO and more production capacity is brought online. Madam Speaker, this means that we still have a few more months ahead of us for the strict maintenance of protocols. It means we must be very careful with the supplies we have and use it where it matters. It means that we all must exercise greater personal responsibility in wearing our masks, social distancing, and avoid unnecessary movement. It is not the end of the journey, but the end is in sight. And you know that you can count on the government. You can feel secure and confident that this government will continue its wise and judicious management of your affairs, protecting both your life and livelihood. Madam Speaker, our security forces have been called upon to play a major supporting role in the management of the pandemic. Increasingly, our police and military is being called upon to deal with unconventional threats and give support in non-traditional areas. Some have lost their lives in the course of duty. A fair assessment will conclude that they have performed their roles creditably. They have been committed and acted with restraint, and I wish to express our deep appreciation for their service. Madam Speaker, the most pressing matter of concern for most Jamaicans regarding our sense of security is the murder rate and its increasing intractable nature. We can report that we ended 2020 with less murders than the previous year. And since 2018, we have essentially flattened the murder curve. There is no doubt that our use of the states of public emergency have worked to reduce murders and shootings wherever they have been deployed. I remain proud of the fact that this administration was able to deploy and implement a framework to enable our security forces to use extraordinary powers and enhanced measures without doing violence to any citizen or resulting in the death of any citizen. Of greater importance is that the public views the SOEs as an effective tool in improving their security and safety. Madam Speaker, there are legal questions raised about the use of the SOEs, and it is the intention of the government to have those issues resolved. The opposition and other commentators prefer the view that government is using the SOE as a crime-fighting tool. I've heard it said on many occasions. And I want the leader of the opposition to pay keen attention. I know you're listening. Keen attention to what I'm about to say. I wish to draw an important distinction that I hope will bring greater clarity to the government's approach to national security and the use of the SOEs. Madam Speaker, the levels of crimes, in particular shootings and resultant murders, are well above the norm for countries at peace, where conventional policing and law enforcement measures can be applied. There is a point where the sheer volume of murders and the gruesomeness of the incidents not only repulse and drive fear in the public, but also overwhelm the security forces and the justice system. What we really have are communities at war with each other, captured by gangs that operate like militia and led by dons who behave like warlords. When a country gets to this point, the problem is more than a crime problem, and the solution requires more than conventional policing. What is required is an intervention to restore and keep the peace. The zones of special operations and its short-term version, the states of public emergency, were designed and developed along the lines of classic peacekeeping missions. The objective was to disarm and dominate the space, control movement in and out, keep gang members out, facilitate community life and social intervention, maintain peace, and win the trust and respect of the citizens. The residents of the communities that have benefited from either the SOE or the ZOZO will tell you that it brought peace, Madam Speaker, peace to their community and gave them the assurance of security. So when the leader of the opposition opposes the SOEs, he's opposing an effective tool that has brought peace to communities in a structured way. Madam Speaker, we have never come here with statistics about how many persons we have arrested in the ZOZO. That's true. What we have always come here is how many lives we have saved. And I believe that that may be the basis of the objection. No, I'm not. What I've said is I'm making a point that I hope will clarify the government's policy. Right? So what I'm saying, Madam Speaker, is that the national conversation is still very limited in the perspective on the crime problem that we have. We are still seeing it as a police problem. The problem that we have, Madam Speaker, Leader of the Opposition, is not
only a police problem. The magnitude of the problem suggests a nation at war.
Yes.
And nations can be at war in different ways. And if you study it, you will see that, yes, you have the conventional warfare, countries at war with countries. But you have internal strife, you have civil wars, you have internecine wars, and believe it or not, sometimes you have feuds, community feuds. And those feuds, not unique to Jamaica. If you look at the history of the American West, of feudal England, feuds. And it is not an absence of law and order. It is that these feuds, these internecine wars, these civil wars have risen to the point where the people who are leading them see themselves as state actors almost. And what we have are similar situations. I mean, what can you say about a community that will say, listen, I'm arming all my little boys in the area and tell them, if anybody from the other community cross the road, shoot them. You tell me what that is, other than a war. Tell me what that is. And how do you stop that? No matter how many of them you arrest, the culture is, there is this underlying issue of conflict. It don't have anything to do with drugs, really. It don't have anything to do with an economic matter. Oftentimes, it is over man or woman business, some stupid argument, and what they do is they pursue the drugs and the guns in order to settle those scores. What you have is a war. And how you stop that? How do you intervene? If you put regular policing in that, what you are doing is setting up the police to commit extrajudicial acts. And that is what this country has done to the police for years. For years. Sending them out there without the proper tools, the proper training, and the proper policies to face this war. You know, it's... Anyway. And then, worse on top of that, is that we turn around and we blame the police, we cuss them, and as one shot fire, we come, more police, more police. Madam Speaker, until we recognize the nature of the problem that we have, and we are willing as a parliament to make the legislative changes that will allow the state to mobilize in ways to do these kinds of peacekeeping and development operations, which are not policing. It's quite a different matter. And that is what we did from a strategic level. We set up the Zozos. It is set up really on the line of a peacekeeping mission, to go into these communities, to remove the conflicts, the conflicting parties, without killing anybody, no loss of life, because peace, that is what you are there to defend, to allow community life to re-emerge, to support them with interventions, to disarm any combatants in the area, because that's what they are. And that is what we have done. And we have an example of it now with 4 communities. Peace. When you go into any of these communities, the people tell you, thank God. Yes. Yes. August Stone can tell you. Yes. Greenwich Farm can tell you. We are not trying to use extraordinary powers to abuse the people of Jamaica. Nobody can say that about the SOE. And it is incredibly frustrating that right when we have applied the right measures, the right tool, we show that we can use force without violence. We can give extraordinary powers with great accountability. And we can get results. For political reason, it was opposed at every turn. For what reason? For what reason? To just come here to show a graph that say crime went down in my time and it went up in yours. For what reason? When if it were supported right now, the entire country would have been celebrating an even deeper fall in crime. We don't have the time. We don't have the luxury. This is a national issue that cuts across all divides. And we should be united. Whenever a measure is working, let us support it. Madam Speaker, we are not deterred, however. We are not deterred. This year, we are planning to add an additional 2 communities under the zones of special operations and restructure an existing one. The Jamaica Social Investment Fund is charged with managing the social transformation to these communities, and the plans are already in place. This means, Madam Speaker, 2 less communities at war, adding to the murder rate. Madam Speaker, dismantling the gangs, because we hear a lot of talk, kind of talk. Sometimes I wonder if when the comments are made, if they are researched. While the SOEs attenuated areas in conflict, the police were busy doing police work. So that's the 2 strategy. One, you have the military supporting the police, but controlling space, doing static duties, and supporting community development. Classic peacekeeping type operation. No gunshots in the area. People can move about their business. People can experience peace. While that is happening, and the gangs have been displaced, the police were busy doing their works. In Jamaica, homicides are significantly biased towards persons affiliated with gangs or are gangsters themselves. Indeed, almost 80% of murders could be linked to some gang-related activity. The anti-gang strategy, apart from the disruptive operational activities designed to reduce their freedom of movement and action, relies heavily on the use of the Criminal Justice, that is the Suppression of Criminal Organizations Act, commonly known as the anti-gang legislation, to investigate and prosecute the gangs as a collective whole. Over the last 3 years, 167 gangsters have been arrested and 130 placed before the courts. This has disrupted the activities of 10 of the major violent gangs across the island. 53 members of the Klansman gang, that's well known to some over there, are currently in custody awaiting trial. In September 2020, the Strategic Counter-Gang Task Force, a multi-formation partnership between the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Branch, Specialized Operations and the Financial Investigation Division, was established to further enhance the constabulary's counter-gang effort. In October 2020, we obtained our first conviction of a criminal gang. The police will continue to do the meticulous investigative work necessary to build cases to dismantle all the gangs in Jamaica. The leader of the opposition talked about they're not doing any investigation. Never before in the history of the police have they done this kind of investigation. Never before. Madam Speaker, while the police enforce the anti-gang strategy, targeting gangs who perpetrate the highest levels of violence in our society, we cannot ignore the remaining attributions for murder in the country. The 20% of men, women, and children, some of whom are murdered at the hands of those known to them. their very own relatives in some instances, in a spate of domestic and interpersonal related murders. We are seeing an increasing trend of interfamilial disputes and contract killings over land, inheritance, and simple disagreements over things such as food or an animal dragging garbage onto a neighbor's property. Life is so cheap. You can pay to take it. Madam Speaker, the recognition of the importance of violence prevention in the reduction of crime and violence is important. And I recognize, Madam Speaker, that it is not just policing, it's not just peacekeeping, but there is just something gone wrong in our culture that causes us to resort to violence as the first means of resolving conflict. Something has just gone wrong with us. Madam Speaker, I have established the National Commission on Violence Prevention to study the problem of violence in Jamaica and the existing strategies being used to reduce violence and to make realistic and attainable recommendations to specifically target attitudinal and behavioral changes in the society. The Commission will formulate and recommend to the government a 10-year plan using a public health approach to address the cultural norms of resorting to violence as a means of conflict resolution. The Commission has already begun its work and has presented its strategic plan for my approval. The government recognizes that the violence problem is not solely a police problem. All of the society must understand that we have become too accepting of violence as a means of resolving conflict in our music, in our entertainment, in our intimate partner relations, in the correction of our children, in our domestic matters, in almost all aspects of interpersonal transactions. We use violence. Violence is of epidemic proportions in Jamaica, and this administration recognizes it for what it is and is taking the structured approach to address it. Madam Speaker, irrespective of the perpetrator of the crime, the key to improved investigative outcomes is an emphasis on the use of integrated scientific approaches in solving crime. The strategy requires a shift from investigations and case file preparations being reliant on witness statements, which is the standard way in which investigations and cases are built in Jamaica, to a process utilizing more science-based evidence in investigations and case building. The growing number of ballistic reports generated and the linkages identified between crime scenes have progressed several major investigations in the courts. The linkages have aided in the identification of inter- and intra-gang activity, criminal suspects, and has also provided invaluable intelligence that has initiated several new investigations. Additionally, cyber forensic and DNA evidence have played a critical role in the clear-up of cases. Increases in our cyber forensic processing output and the routine retrieval of DNA from crime scenes and recovered weapons have directly led to more convictions. This approach to investigations has resulted in a better clear-up rate. In 2020, the JCF recorded a clear-up rate of 53% compared to a clear-up rate for homicides of 39% in 2019, all because we have made a shift in investing in forensic capabilities, investing in cyber capabilities, and making the administrative change to ensure that we change the way we investigate crime and build cases. And it is having an effect. Madam Speaker, improving the working environment of the police is critical to raising morale. I'm proud to say that this administration has invested more in the building and renovation of police facilities than any other administration before. 116 police facilities have been programmed over the last 3 years for repairs, refurbishment, and construction. You're looking there on the screen of a brand new police station being constructed, and I believe that that one is in Olympic Gardens, maybe? No, this is Shady Grove. But there's one being constructed in Olympic Gardens, brand new. That was a promise made by a former MP on that side many years ago, and I'm just fulfilling it. The JCF has also benefited from significant investments in building a more standardized, fit-for-purpose and newer transportation fleet in order to improve the response times to calls for service and provide greater police efficiency through the use of integrated database, fleet management and tracking systems. Now, we talked about that for years, Madam Speaker, for years, why we don't put trackers on the car. Well, it is there now. It is there now. I'm also pleased to report that body-worn camera systems are now being rolled out in the police force. This will provide protection for members of the JCF and the public through the provision of an objective view of incidents and have a positive impact on the speed at which incidents are investigated and disposed of. Madam Speaker, this administration has taken a carefully studied and strategic approach to security and crime reduction. Our strategy is multidimensional, practical, and citizen-focused. Through our steady and deliberate efforts, we have been seeing results, and I am confident that we will overcome the crime monster in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I believe that the sector that has been hardest hit by the pandemic is education. I fear it will have the most far-reaching, long-lasting, and devastating effect on our society and prospects for faster, stronger, and better recovery. In an already uneven and unequal system, the pandemic would have widened the education divide in our society. I have asked the Minister of Education to do a comprehensive study on learning loss in the system and make recommendations to the Cabinet by June 15th on how this could be corrected. Madam Speaker, we must get our children back to school by September 2021. I have insisted that teachers should be in the first phase of those being prioritized for vaccination. Depending on how quickly we can get our teachers vaccinated, we could possibly consider summer school as an option for make-up classes. And we would welcome the support of the opposition on that, if it is something that you consider. No, but it makes sense, because the alternative solution is to have everybody repeat, which itself poses all kinds of logistics problems to the system. Madam Speaker, I fear that our early childhood learners would be hardest hit, as they are at the age where they are most receptive to learning and the development of foundational skills. In the distribution of tablets, as well as in the distribution of tablets, early childhood age students are likely to be overlooked. To this end, the Chase Fund will provide $50 million through a partnership with the National Education Trust towards the procurement and distribution of tablets to over 2,000 students in the infant schools island-wide. Madam Speaker, it's a small drop. There are about 150,000 infant school students, but it is still a drop that makes the bucket higher. The water in the bucket is still higher. So we urge other persons, other organizations. I myself, Madam Speaker, I have given out over 1,000 tablets, and I plan to do more, because I believe in providing students with the means to connect to the internet. And, the time is coming where, most of the content that students will need, they will be able to carry on their tablets. Yes. And the tablet will become like pen and paper. Yes. So, I believe in making the investment there. We'd love to do more, but that's what we can do now, and I encourage others listening who may want to do so to identify a school and give it to the net to give to the school so that it can be recorded. That's the National Education Trust. Because what I'm fearful of is that there is a lot of giving and there's a lot of duplication. And I've gotten reports that schools are getting tablets and they're holding on to them. Don't want to give it to the students. I don't know why. But I think we should make it absolutely clear that the tablets are not the property of the school. We're giving them to the students so that they can use it. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission, which was established in July 2000, has met with a wide range of stakeholders and international partners, as well as specialists in educational development, including several who led previous initiatives resulting in the 2004 Task Force report. The Commission is especially alert to the complexities emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic and seeks to take advantage of the innovations it has forced upon our educators in order to build back better when normalcy returns. The first draft of the findings and proposed recommendations will be provided within the first quarter of the new financial year, that's 2021-2022. So I saw your little video, member from Southwest St. Andrew, querying when the report will be made. I too was hoping that I would have had it in April as I had asked, but the challenge of doing it by distance, which essentially that's what happened. That caused the workflow to be disrupted. In order to remain relevant and compete in the 21st century global economy, we have to fundamentally transform ourselves. STEM disciplines, science, technology, energy and mathematics, and coding are at the heart of the global technological revolution. Madam Speaker, I had announced last year that this administration is committed to the development of 6 new science, technology, engineering, and math schools. These would be the STEM schools. Madam Speaker, the pandemic obviously intervened. This, Madam Speaker, does not mean that the projects are abandoned. No, we have taken the time to do the designs and the planning. We have identified 2 locations, and we are proceeding with the finalization of the plans, and I'm understanding now that they are at the PIMSEC, that is the public investment process, to be approved. So they are well on their way to be delivered. And the Minister of Finance, I know there will be no deliberations about funding them because he's a man who believes in education. So we're going to have some first-class schools in science and technology. Madam Speaker, infrastructure investment stimulates the economy, but we must do it in a strategic and purposeful way. Infrastructure investment is not merely about projects and assets. It's about using the physical building structure to enhance lives. So infrastructure is about improving quality of life. Madam Speaker, in 2020-21 financial year, the Port Authority of Jamaica has had several accomplishments. However, for the first time in 8 years, the Port Authority will post a loss. While the pandemic has dealt a huge blow to global tourism, perhaps no other sector in the industry has been impacted more severely than the cruise industry. As a result, our cruise shipping segment, which accounted for $2.92 billion, or 30% of the Port Authority's total revenues in 2020-2021, that was completely eliminated. And that explains why the Port Authority would have made a loss. On a positive note, however, revenues from cargo operations exceeded the budget during the fiscal year. Measures to reduce operating expenses also yielded savings against the budget. These effects were not sufficient, however, to overcome the losses from the fallout in cruise. With the vaccination program now in full swing in the United States, the Port Authority is cautiously optimistic that cruise operations will resume on or before the start of the season in November 2021. In anticipation of the sustained positive impact of cruise shipping on the job creation prospects and growth in the periods ahead, the authority proceeded with expansion and upgrading plans at major cruise terminals. Now, I want the Parliament to appreciate that when the pandemic hit, the strategy of the government was to say to all the agencies, do not recoil. Continue to build. I recall meeting with the construction sector, being very clear that construction must go on, and we are happy to see that the construction sector took what the government said, and now we are seeing construction booming in the pandemic. And all of our agencies have continued with their programs, including the PAJ, even though their revenues for this year would have fallen. But what it means is that whatever reserves they have built up over the years, they are going to invest those now. And that is what needs to happen. So it is not always that it is the government must spend centrally. It can be that we can get the private sector to calculate the risk and increase their own spending in the economy. But that can only work if there is confidence. It can only work if they see the rating agency say, hey, Jamaica is a good prospect for investment. That's it. And the rating agencies, based upon maintaining, saying that Jamaica is doing well. It continues to be a good prospect for investment. So, Madam Speaker, the expansion of the Freeport terminal works to extend berth 2 to accommodate the current trend of larger size vessels and construction of a new berth 1 to handle cargo. That is underway. The project is expected to be completed in 2022 at a cost of US $16.4 million. The PAJ has been engaged with the Urban Development Corporation with a view to transforming the Montego Bay Freeport Road between the roundabout and the eastern boundary of the terminal. And those who live in Montego Bay would know how important this project is. Indeed, we get many complaints, but this project is now underway. The aim is to create a pedestrian-friendly stretch of roadway with provision for cycling and mopeds, vehicular traffic and buses for transporting guests and locals along the roadway in an orderly and appealing fashion. All of that will be done. The intention is to interconnect this roadway with the other developments being implemented by the UDC along the Montego Bay waterfront, creating a walking trail for guests and local alike. The prospects for this, Madam Speaker, is exciting. Exciting. So you can imagine having a promenade that would carry you from Freeport all the way around, possibly to Doctors, possibly to even to the new park, the beach.
Yes.
Yes. So all of this, Madam Speaker, will be done.
Mega item.
Madam Speaker, last year during the pandemic, the Port Authority, in partnership with and funding from the Tourism Enhancement Fund, completed construction of a new artisan village at the old Hamden Wharf at a cost of 730 million Jamaican dollars to facilitate skilled craftspeople producing and selling their wares directly on the terminal. That's a major investment. Major investment. You know, I don't know how people say not going on. I mean, I have the new 35,000 square foot artisan village comprising craft shops, restaurants and performance spaces has been completed and handed over to the Tourism Enhancement Fund, which is now responsible for the theming and operation of the artisan village. That's a massive addition to our tourism product.
Major.
Madam Speaker, you know, I have a passion, Madam Speaker, for planned development. I think that is what Jamaica has lacked. So, Madam Speaker, the PAJ is now focused on the creation of a new town centre in Falmouth, combining the conveniences and aesthetic of a modern urban town with elements of the existing Georgian architecture. The multi-year project is to be developed as a public-private partnership located on 50 acres of land owned by the authority adjacent to the terminal and to the existing historic town. The new town centre will feature modern mixed-use spaces including commercial and housing facilities, a civic square, town commons, a promenade, mini parks, and a redeveloped drag line. And for those who don't know what the drag line is, a major drain, earth drain, that runs through the town, and it is problematic because I gather it is lower than sea level, and so sometimes it floods. So that will also be addressed. So the people of Falmouth in Trelawney knows that the government, even in the pandemic, is working for them.
They made a good decision.
And and as you have pointed out, they have made the right decision. Because we intend to make Falmouth, with all its rich history, a premier destination for cruise and attractions, as well as a centre for lifestyle and long-stay leisure, given, Madam Speaker, the rapid expansion of middle-income housing in the parish, of which you well know as the senior member in the parish. And you know, Madam Speaker, when I stand here and make the presentations, and you know, there's always a sense that you think people might say, well, you know, I've heard this before and it won't get done. You know, Madam Speaker, the track record is, we came here and we said we're going to do Port Royal, and we did it. And I can tell you many more projects. Action, yeah. Madam Speaker, the Reynolds Pier in Ocherius has been reconstructed to create a second berthing facility capable of accommodating the largest classes of cruise vessels. A new promenade has been installed linking the Reynolds Pier to the Ocherius Fishing Village and Island Village, the main cruise terminal, and the town of Ocherius. The project was completed at a cost of US $22 million, and it complements the works undertaken to upgrade the Ocherius town itself. Ocherius, which enjoys the largest concentration of attractions in the Caribbean, now has a new face and is positioned to establish itself as the top-tier cruise destination in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, as I pointed out, you'll recall last year, we welcomed 3 cruise vessels at the Port Royal Cruise Terminal before the cruise sector was shut down due to COVID-19 concerns in April 2020. Can you imagine, Madam Speaker, what Port Royal would be like now if we had 1 year? But we will recover, and we will recover stronger. A second phase of works to construct a new museum, restaurant, and entertainment facilities will be completed in 2021-2022. Madam Speaker, we are not stopping the investment there. We are going to continue to invest. Madam Speaker, throughout the process, care has been taken to integrate the community in the development process. A new promenade linking the terminal to the town has been constructed. Several projects were undertaken in the town, including the rebuilding of the old ferry pier, rehabilitation and painting of sections of the Brotherhood building complex, repairs to roadways and drainage systems there, curbs and sidewalk improvements, and installation of new signage. These initiatives were a model of multi-agency collaboration, including the PAJ, UDC, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, the National Works Agency, the NWC, the National Housing Trust, the Jamaica Social Investment Commission, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, Social Development Commission, and the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, and the Member of Parliament. But that is how we do development. That is how we do development. We bring everybody together. Everybody is on the same page. We divide up the work, and we supervise it to make sure it gets done. We follow up. Madam Speaker, with these developments, Jamaica intends to be a leader in the cruise sector in the hemisphere. We have 5 terminals, each featuring a range of attractions in proximity, and all are near to an international airport. Montego Bay is ideally equipped as a home porting facility, and this is a segment of the cruise sector that we intend to grow significantly. In fact, Madam Speaker, we are all just speaking in advanced thought that we are looking to develop other cruise ports, facilities, and in effect, Jamaica could become its own itinerary.
That's correct.
When we are finished, we could become keep our fingers crossed. Don't say too much until it's well planned. But that's the thinking. All our facilities can accommodate the bunkering of fuel while the vessels are at berth, and Jamaica is currently the only country capable of bunkering LNG, the fastest growing fuel type for the new generation of cruise vessels currently being built. Madam Speaker, cruise tourism can have great socio-economic impact if we position ourselves to maximize the returns. The artisans, tour guides, the agriculture sector, our creative talent, adventure and cultural experiences, and communities can benefit greatly from cruise tourism. Madam Speaker, with a 30-year concession agreement in place for the Kingston Container Terminal, the Port Authority has turned its attention to developing land holdings immediately adjacent to the KCT in a near-port logistics centre. The PAJ has constructed a 200,000 square feet logistics facility built to international logistics specifications on a section of land immediately beside the main entrance to the Kingston Container Terminal. Given the centrality of security to the development of transshipment and logistics in Kingston, the PAJ has also constructed a state-of-the-art security complex with its own container inspection facility, housing the Jamaica Customs Agency Contraband Enforcement Team and the U.S. Counter Security Initiative. Madam Speaker, recognizing the potential of the large secondary and tertiary trained workforce in Portmore and the greater St. Catherine region. The Port Authority has developed 160,000 square feet of modern facilities designed to attract the top BPO companies in the world. A specific goal is to encourage these companies to commit to higher value added work, allowing Jamaica to move up the value chain in the global outsourcing sector. When added to this existing 50,000 square feet building at the site, which has now been upgraded, the new complex forms a unique campus environment ideally suited for the global outsourcing sector. Constructed at a cost of $21 million, the campus is expected to accommodate up to 4,000 new employees. Construction of the building is complete, and the external works are expected to be completed in May 2021. Tenanting is at an advanced stage. Madam Speaker, we have commenced the packaging of the existing portfolio of assets in the Montego Bay Special Economic Zone and the Portmore Informatics Park, with a view to listing them on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So all those people who are eagerly investing in stocks, and Madam Speaker, since this administration, we have added new interest and life to the stock exchange. Between 30 and 40,000 new shareholders Jamaicans have now gone on the stock exchange. In other words, they have a new way of securing wealth in stocks. And we did that. Ordinary people brought them. And the idea presented by the leader of the opposition regarding ESOP, that is something that we can look at and work together on that, because it's something I believe in the ownership of assets. It's not just owning land, but it's also owning companies. They are also means of production. So, Madam Speaker, the PAJ is in this process now of packaging these assets into a portfolio, and will be taking them to the stock market for persons to buy into them. And these are very good assets. These developments have been very successful, consistently enjoying occupancy levels of over 95%, and have been used to catalyze the development of the BPO sector in Montego Bay and Portmore. Madam Speaker, listing these assets on the stock exchange is consistent with the government's stated policy of using the capital markets to socialize wealth and allow for broad-based ownership of the productive assets of the country, like the highly successful IPOs of Wigton and Trans-Jamaica Highway in the previous year. We will enable all Jamaicans to participate in ownership of a sector which is poised for even greater growth. Madam Speaker, we are making the investments as we reimagine the future of the tourism and global outsourcing sector, ensuring that Jamaica recovers faster, stronger, and better than before. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the UDC, which attained ISO 901 standards certification this year, which is a major achievement. As would have been expected, with closures of attractions under its portfolio, the UDC projects that there will be significant, they have had an impact on their revenues. It has had a significant impact on their revenues. Despite this, the UDC was able to achieve quite a few milestones in fiscal year 2021. Such as the completion of Harmony Beach Park in Montego Bay, styled as the Emancipation Park of the West. It's beautiful. I toured it when it was close to completion, and it is a magnificent facility. It does rival Emancipation Park. Well, it has a beach. This is a major development for the city of Kingston in sustainable and integrated public spaces for the people. Sorry, for the city of Montego Bay. Did I say Kingston? Forgive, the city of Montego Bay. It is the UDC's flagship project in Montego Bay and will be open to the public as soon as COVID-related restrictions allow. We would have opened it 2 weeks ago, but we changed the protocols which prevented that from happening. But, Madam Speaker, again, this is a project which I announced, I believe it was last year or the year before, and now the project is complete. It is, yes, so when we come to Parliament and we say we are going to do these things, people can have confidence that these big projects that we announce, they'll get done. It is a free access beach park which spans 16 acres of open-air public space, complete with food courts, multi-purpose sport courts, children's play area, and a wide variety of entertainment spaces. The development incorporates renewable and sustainable technologies with solar power and a jogging park fabricated from recycled tires. The facility was constructed within budget at a cost of 1.3 billion Jamaican dollars and completed within 22 months. There was a 4 months delay due to the pandemic. Madam Speaker, for 2021-2022, the UDC will focus on projects that will offer major climate resilient infrastructure and sustainable public spaces for residents and visitors. And these include the Montego Bay waterfront. And we will be building on the successful completion of the Harmony Beach Park. There will be additional complementary waterfront developments, including the construction of groin and sill infrastructure to protect current and future investments scheduled to be completed in 2021, 2022, and the development of the concept of, and this is a very interesting one, to develop a concept of an oceanarium in Montego Bay, which is an ocean conservation living museum. It is kind of I don't know if persons would have ever, been to one, but it is an amazing experience. It's oftentimes underwater, but sometimes, they build displays and so forth. But it's an attraction in itself, but it is also for conservation. So they are now developing the plans for that, and this would be the first of its kind in the region. The project supports Jamaica's expansion on its blue economy platform and will see the convergence of urban development and environmental management in the tourism capital of Montego Bay. Madam Speaker, the Kingston waterfront. Somebody once said to me that, Jamaica turns its back to the sea. Kingston turns its back to the sea. In other words, in any developed city of the world you go to that is on the waterfront, the waterfront is a busy place. It's the highest value property, and it's really lovely. We have given up downtown for whatever reason, so we haven't invested in downtown. But it is the place, it has the ambience, and that was the original design. It was designed to have a waterfront, and that waterfront to be continued. Having left it for 50 years without any really new development, the city has deteriorated, the downtown Kingston area. But I can tell you that between the programs announced by the Minister of Finance supporting the efforts of the KSAC and the efforts of the UDC in the area, we are seeing signs of the regeneration and interest. The UDC will advance the development of the Kingston Harbour Walk, a comprehensive project that includes both climate resilience infrastructure and related public space in the form of a 28-kilometer or a 17-mile linear park from Ocean Boulevard in downtown Kingston to Port Royal. So if you look on the map that is being displayed, you will see some areas highlighted. So the project will build on the coastal protection that exists in sections including the downtown Kingston Ocean Boulevard seawall that is already in place, and that was built in the 1970s. The Palisadoes rock revetment that was built in 2000, 2010, thereabout, 2011, as well as the revetment between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Raytown, which is currently under construction by the Jamaica Social Investment Fund. The transformative Harbour Walk development will comprise a combination of scenic vistas and parks, a coastal and roadside promenade, providing active and passive spaces for recreational, that would be jogging and cycling, etc., and entertainment purposes. Economic activity will also flourish with commercial opportunities all along the walk, featuring restaurants and spaces for pop-up entertainment, bringing an enhanced quality of life to the capital city in a manner for those of you who have traveled to Cuba, for example, to see the Malecon. So we are going to create our Malecon in Kingston. Madam Speaker, Portmore will be getting some attention from the government. This project will involve the development of a climate park in collaboration with the Portmore Municipal Corporation and the Climate Change Division. This is a project that has been in the works for a long time, proposed and haggling over land and all kinds of issues prevented it, but the government is determined to do this project. As one of Jamaica's largest residential communities with a population of over 270,000 persons, the welfare and quality of life of Portmore citizens requires focused attention to support its planned parish status. It is important that urban amenities, including requisite managed public spaces, are developed and retrofitted to prepare for a climate-resilient future. The park in the Portmore Town Centre is over 14 acres of prime UDC land that displays our commitment to urban green spaces as the key next project in the Park in Every Parish initiative, and provide opportunities for health, wellness, and generally improved environment at the centre of Portmore. Madam Speaker, through the UDC, we are making the kind of investment in urban spaces that ensure that Jamaica's recovery is sustainable, and I'm going to use this word, urbane, and improves quality of life. Madam Speaker, Jamaica is preparing for economic recovery. by preparing significant infrastructural development projects that will improve productivity, stimulate growth, and boost employment. Among these projects is the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project, which is made up of the following sections: the Montego Bay Bypass, approximately 14.99 kilometers, the Barnett Street West Green Avenue Road Rehabilitation Project, the Long Hill Bypass, which is approximately 10.5 kilometers, and a drainage study of the Montego Bay Bypass area. And I will deal with each one by one. Montego Bay is Jamaica's #1 tourist destination. Montego Bay also has an international airport. In normal times, it is the busiest of our two airports. In addition, the Montego Bay port welcomed cruise ships to its port at least 2 days per week prior to COVID. Traffic congestion has been a long-standing issue in the city of Montego Bay, as there is essentially one main thoroughfare connecting the east with the west. In 2017, a study of traffic through the city showed that daily traffic reached in excess of 57,845 vehicles per day, which is the highest traffic volume island-wide outside of Kingston and St. Andrew, and exceeds the capacity of the main thoroughfare by over 11,000 vehicles per day. Even with tourism at multi-decade lows in terms of occupancy, Montego Bay is still congested. It is important that once the world gets over COVID-19, tourism in Montego Bay will continue to grow, and it is a fact that congestion will worsen. Growth in the tourism sector will result in additional traffic being generated by the airport and seaport, as well as additional traffic throughput in the city to access various attractions in and around Montego Bay. This includes traffic intending to bypass the city. The commercial center, with all its amenities, lies at the heart of the city, with its main thoroughfare along the coast. A bypass for Montego Bay has been contemplated for at least 20 years, given the growth of the town, or rather the city, and the development of the tourism industry in St. James and neighboring parishes. Madam Speaker, the time has come to finally get the Montego Bay bypass done. The Long Hill bypass includes a 10.5 kilometer bypass of the treacherous section of the Long Hill, which connects the Montego Bay area to the south coast via Montpelier. The project will improve access from Montego Bay to Jamaica's south coast by providing a direct connection to the Maypen to Williamsfield leg of Highway 2000. The Montego Bay Perimeter project will complement the work that was done by the National Works Agency under the Ferris Cross to Macfield Road Improvement Project in Westmoreland through Midpee. In the long term, or rather the long-term effect of the Montego Bay Perimeter project is therefore to provide an interconnection to the island-wide road network. That is, both the toll road network as well as the main road network. These works, when completed, will allow for a 4-lane highway network which connects Kingston to Montego Bay. Also included will be the rehabilitation, expansion, and widening of Barnett Street and West Green Avenue to complement works being done on the Montego Bay bypass section of the project. Madam Speaker, there have been perennial issues caused by flooding in the city of Montego Bay, which has resulted in significant loss of productivity and damage to property and business. We saw this vividly only 2 years ago. In fact, we saw this vividly last year with images widely circulated on social media and traditional media of excessive flooding caused by in fact, a few hours of rain. The cause of the frequent and severe flooding during heavy rain events can be attributed to the significant urbanization of the city over the past 4 decades, resulting in increased storm runoff, inadequate drainage to convey the increased runoff, improper garbage disposal, with garbage being dumped into drainage channels. In addition to the direct flood damage cost, recent flood events in Montego Bay have resulted in many schools and businesses being forced to close, persons missing their flights, visitors finding it difficult to get back to their cruise ships, and residents and commuters being stranded. The effect of these flood impacts, if not addressed, will only continue to stymie the growth and prosperity of the city and the people of Montego Bay and Jamaica as a whole. The need for a comprehensive drainage solution for the city of Montego Bay is therefore urgently required. Undertaking a drainage study for the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project as part of the Montego Bay, as part of the whole project presents an opportunity for the various government agencies to collaborate on identifying and addressing the drainage problems in the area. Madam Speaker, early in last term, when we began the development of this project, it was originally envisaged that the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project would be financed through a loan from the China Exim Bank, and as such, China Harbour would be contracted to build out the project. This would have been similar to how the North-South Highway was developed, as well as the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project. Madam Speaker, we proceeded on that basis, and CHEC did much of the preliminary work. In fact, CHEC did most of the preliminary work to get most of it done to this point. However, in keeping with our fiscal arrangements, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service subsequently indicated that Jamaica did not need to borrow from China to implement the project. It's a very important point. We could finance this infrastructure project within our own resources. This would be the first major highway development financed with our own resources and not linked to a loan. If that is not a sign of how Jamaica has grown in its economic and financial management. Highway 2000 was done by borrowed money. The North-South Highway was done by borrowed money. The South Coast Highway was done with borrowed money. North-South, yes. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to say that the Montego Bay Perimeter project will be undertaken and completed without borrowing any funds. I stated this publicly in 2019, and I conveyed this personally to our friends in China on my visit to that country, and I was well received by President Xi. Madam Speaker, this is a good day for Jamaica. Even in a pandemic, we will develop our infrastructure with the resources of the people of Jamaica. The Cabinet has declared the Montego Bay Perimeter project as a national development project. This project will be one of the most important infrastructure developments in Western Jamaica in recent times. As such, following Cabinet's approval, the Minister of Finance and the Public Service will bring an order to Parliament subject to affirmative resolution for the declaration of the Montego Bay Perimeter Project as a national development project. Madam Speaker, it is the government's intention that once this order has been affirmed, the government will contract directly with China Harbour Engineering as the contractor of the project, as provided for direct contracting under the Public Procurement Act of 2015. Madam Speaker, Jamaica values our strategic partnership with China in trade and infrastructure development. China Harbour has performed with respect to the North-South Highway when others left that project, and they are performing on the South Coast Highway Improvement Project. Furthermore, they were the ones who worked on the project with the government from its conceptualization, planning, and preliminary designs. Yes, so it is only fair. It is only fair, and more than that, it is a principled thing to do and a sign of good faith. Right? And the truth is that when times were hard, when other people got up and left the project and no one would put any money in Jamaica, the relationship that we have with China as a strategic partner in trade and infrastructure development has served us well. And we must demonstrate good faith. So, the project being declared in this way will be a model in the sense of government using its own resources to finance such a project. It is the intention of the government that going forward, after this project, Jamaica will develop the capacity to not only fund highway infrastructure projects with our own resources, but also to design and implement a sophisticated international bidding process that attracts multiple international firms for the selection of the contractor. This will require capacity building, and we are working with the World Bank and the U.S. Treasury Department to develop this capacity. Madam Speaker, the National Works Agency, which also became ISO 9001 certified, will continue to execute its mandate to plan, build, and maintain a safe, reliable, and efficient main road network and flood control systems. During 2020, the agency cleared 206 roads island-wide that were severely affected by various rain-related events, which rendered some communities inaccessible. In addition to utilizing its own equipment, the agency was able to leverage donor support of equipment from the JDF and some private sector partners. To date, approximately $1 billion has been spent to reopen blocked roads. And I think we have done a fairly good job. The Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew is putting up many videos of the road, that massive breakaway being repaired, and it is going on very well. You know, we underestimate some of our agencies, and the NWA is one that gets a lot of cussing. But think about it. We had a massive storm, destroyed the road, and the NWA, in a matter of weeks, cut a new road around it, went to contracting now, to repair that massive breakaway, and that is now ongoing. So we must also, Madam Speaker, mitigate against these extreme weather events, particularly those that create flooding. We must enhance our flood control response. The agency will be undertaking works to reconstruct the gully walls and inverts on parts of the Sandy Gully in St. Andrew North. Who is the MP for St. Andrew North? Some Minister Samuda and Minister Truck. And I was looking for Minister Clark.
Sandy Gully.
No, St. Andrew North. So it's the three MPs.
He's not west.
Right.
You call them Chuck.
And in St. James, we will be doing work on the north-south gully in St. James as well. And that gully actually is in need of serious attention. And in Portmore, we will be doing the greater Portmore gully. The NWA's main capital road project for fiscal year 2021-2022 will remain the South Coast Highway Improvement Project. During the year, we will commence work on 5 additional contract packages valued at some $6.6 billion. The 5 packages are: package number 1, the Yallas Bridge to Loudon Hill, Salt Pond, that is 6.72 kilometers. Package 2, Loudon Hill, that's Salt Pond, to Pomfret, 4.9 kilometers. Package 3, Pomfret to Morant Bay, to the Morant River Bridge, 9.5 kilometers. Package 12, the Boston area to Drapers, at 7.4 kilometers. And package 13, and you can see the map being displayed on the screens, if they're not quite clear. Package 13 will be Drapers to Port Antonio, 9.2 kilometers. And I would just pause for a minute to say, Madam Speaker, that this is a major investment in opening up the eastern end of the island. And it shows our commitment that we made to the people, that we don't believe that St. Thomas should be the forgotten parish. I mean, the investment that is being made there is significant. Significant. The point of fact is that we spend it.
You are going to spend it.
Right? We are building it. But as you go around, as you follow the yellow line and you go around, you will see that we are ending up into Port Antonio. What is on that picture being displayed is that we have now made a decision and we have entered into now the design phase for a bypass road for Port Antonio. The Port Antonio is a gem.
That's correct.
It is now being stifled by urbanization and congestion. And what we need to do now is to give the town a chance to breathe.
Yes.
Because it's like most towns in Jamaica. It's a one road town. But we need to go around it and allow the town to develop. And so we have taken that decision. So in another year or so, you will hear more about the alignment and the cost. But that will be done. And it will be done in parallel to what is happening on the South Coast Road Improvement Project. So to date, measured works at approximately US $53 million have been certified under the South Coast Road Improvement Project. Pipelines and sewage installation works valued at US $29 million will continue to be rolled out in tandem with the roadworks. Madam Speaker, the Southern Coastal Highway project is expected to open up new areas of tourism development and improve traffic flows in several urban centres via a bypass to a number of congested townships, including Port Antonio. Madam Speaker, bridges are a critical component of our infrastructure program. The Barracks River Bridge in St. Mary, the Ligani Avenue Bridge, which I opened in St. Andrew, and the Riverton City Bridge in Kingston were completed in 2020-2021. For the 2020-2022 period, fiscal year, the focus will be on completing the Mahogany Vale Bridge in St. Thomas, the Tiber River Bridge in St. Mary, and the Golden Vale Bridge in Portland. Construction of the Penfield Bridge number 2 in St. Andrew is also expected to commence alongside repairs of other bridges. Madam Speaker, I had announced the Lentman program last year, a program of preventative maintenance of critical infrastructure to be implemented at the community level by local residents. So the program is designed to do two things. One, the preventative maintenance, but it is also designed to bring employment and some relief to communities, new income into these communities. While details for a pilot of the program were prepared, it was delayed as a result of the pandemic, as well as the need to respond to damage to road networks resulting from flood rains that began in July and continued to November 2020. So I believe MP Hilton, you would have been notified under the previous dispensation for the Lentman program, and some other MPs as well. However, the NAA is ready to commence the Lentman program in 2021-2022 with a pilot that will run from Dunrobin Avenue along Washington Boulevard to Mandela Highway, leading to the Jose Marti roundabout. So that's just the pilot. So the MPs along that road, you will be contacted and we'll give more information as before April is out. In 2021-2022, the NAA will continue work to identify areas along improved road corridors with developmental potential towards catalyzing growth. Based on the government's infrastructure investment, the Hagley Park, Constant Spring, and Barbican areas will see residential and commercial valuations increased with upward adjustments in the proposed density under revised development orders. To fully maximize this opportunity, the government will move to partner with the private sector and explore the use of what we call a modified fee-based scheme, an impact fee, based to incentivize, or designed rather, to incentivize and unleash the development potential along the recently developed road corridors in the KMA. Madam Speaker, let me explain the thinking a bit. All of these roadworks that we have done, especially under the mid-P, they are borrowed funds. And they are fairly expensive. So we put a road like what we have done on Constant Spring, and we put in sewage, and we have put in telecoms, and we have put in a new water main. But that investment has to repay itself somehow. The taxpayers are going to repay it, and the taxpayer include the man who owns no land there, the poor man who is struggling. And yes, it does include the landowner as well. The challenge that we have, Madam Speaker, in making this massive investment is to have the investment sitting there. We are paying for it, but to have property along the investment not being utilized to its maximum potential. So it would be like running a sewer main there that has a capacity of X, but the sewer main is only using a capacity of half of X. It's wasted. Minister Truck says it's going to be used. The question is when, because what we see is that many persons who own property hold property for speculative purposes, to just see the value increase. So the government can't go and spend this money, and it's sitting, the investment is sitting there, and nothing is happening. So the government has to find a way to stimulate persons who own property, not to just let the property sit there and deteriorate and do nothing. Use the property. Maximize the property. Utilize it to its full potential. In some cases, in other countries, when governments do these kinds of development, they charge what is called an impact fee. Madam Speaker, what we are saying, and we are still in the development phases of this, but I thought I would say it here in the budget where we have Jamaicans listening, especially persons who pay attention to the budget. Eventually, we will have to charge an impact fee when we do these developments. But here is the catch. If you do your developments now, then there is no charge. So I'm putting it out there. We have to, it is, you know, when we talk about equity in the society, that's what we mean. Government spend billions of dollars on the roads. People who already have income and property, their value increase. They pay some taxes, yes, but the person who has no value, no asset, they pay as well. What happens? The inequality in the society increases. So when the leader of the opposition talks about inequality, the inequality comes by virtue of how government policy operates. Right? You have to understand welfare economics to ensure that when you are making policy, you recognize that what you're actually doing is distributing equity. And many times the government of Jamaica, we have made policies, and all the policies in the long run is just increase inequality. And I know some people are going to say, no, you shouldn't do that. But if we are genuine about treating with inequality, and these are the things that you have to do. So the fair thing to do is to say to the persons who own property, listen, stop rent-seeking behavior. Right? You have a capital market that is working very well. The approval process is improving. Right? Bring that property to the development table so that you can employ the man who walk past the property every day and have to pay the GCT that pay back for the loan that developed the road. So so I just want the Jamaican people to understand that this government thinks about the inequality issues in different ways. There are some people who see it as a redistributive issue. You know, that was the thinking sometimes in the 70s. Just take it from this one and give it to that one. Or if you have two houses, take one from him and give it to the other one. But that's not how you address it. You address the inequality issues by crafting policies in the way in which we are thinking about crafting these policies. So we are working on that now. I'm just putting it out there. That is the thinking. So avoid that by starting your developments now. Madam Speaker, the NWA and the government of Jamaica, we have certain properties that we own along those thoroughfares that we have developed, and we are going to lead by example. We are not just going to leave the property there undeveloped. The challenge that the government faces is that everybody wants it, and everybody feels that their offer should be accepted. So what we are going to do, we are going to package those projects. We're going to put them under a kind of enterprise team overseen by the DBJ, and we're going to put them out for divestment. So people who have been making contact about parcels and properties that they see, well, look out for the advertisement rather, for these properties, and we're going to put them out there. You have to come with a development plan that satisfies us that it will be in keeping with the area and that it is not buying the land for speculation, because in any property that we're divesting, you will have a time to develop it. Otherwise, the property will come back to the government. So we are only going to take serious bidders who will be looking to develop within a year of purchase. Madam Speaker, 6 projects have been identified that will address recurrent congestion, improve road safety, especially for vulnerable pedestrians, provide water supply and sewage, reduce vehicle operating costs, and support future development. Project number 1 is widening of the Brayton Road from Hellshire Main Road. So it's the widening of the Brayton Road and the Hellshire Main Road, forgive me, yeah. The dualization of Grange Lane. That's the Grange Lane would be independent. And I know many persons listening to this will be happy now. The dualization of East King's House Road and Lady Musgrave Road. That would be, in effect, a continuation of the Barbican project. The widening of Arthurwick Drive. Julian, somebody there likes me. And the Washington Boulevard Bridge. You know that bridge, you're coming down in 2 lanes and then you're narrowed to 1. Yeah, from 3, right, so you're coming in 3, you're narrowed to 2. Now we're going to increase the size of that bridge. And we're also examining now the access to Portmore via Highway 2000. That one is one that we haven't made a definitive decision. We have made a decision for the expenditure, but we haven't made a decision on the option that we're going to use to solve that problem of the traffic trying to get into Portmore, which is still a bottleneck. But we are putting the resources there to do it, so the decision will be made shortly as to how it will be done. So the agency will be also implementing a 50 million road safety program, which will see the installation of raised pavement markers along the North Coast Highway and other road corridors. In addition to being relatively inexpensive, raised pavement markers improve road visibility and tactile feedback to restore driver attention. Madam Speaker, I'm now going to turn attention to the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority. At the end of March 2020, 98% or 131 of the total 134 approved free zone entities had transitioned to the new Special Economic Zone regime. This number, together with the 52 new SEZ developers who entered into licensing arrangements with the authority, brought the complement of SEZ entities to 183, representing a growth trajectory of 30% under the new regime. With the coming on stream of these SEZ entities, the government of Jamaica has increased revenues and employment. Madam Speaker, the economic in SEZ also means employment. The SEZ are spread across 11 parishes with the aim of stimulating development for commercial and logistics infrastructure to catalyze the economy. Jamaica's SEZs embrace a range of services including training, incubation space, warehousing and distribution, logistics, manufacturing, assembly, and production facilities. Currently, the regime boasts 26.6 million square feet of designated SEZ area. And we are pleased to report that despite COVID-19, there are 12 new zones under construction. 12! In a variety of industries, totaling 1.1 million square feet of new space. Madam Speaker, business confidence in the SEZ model, which was established as an economic stimulus strategy, continues to grow, with heightened local and foreign investor interest in a wide cross-section of traditional as well as new and emerging industries. The authority is currently in discussion with a number of prospective investors at different stages of their projects. These include educational, medical, pharmaceutical, film, which we're happy to hear, petrochemical, and other commercial industries. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the DBJ, the Development Bank of Jamaica. Micro, small, and medium enterprises are key drivers of our economy. In response to the impact of COVID-19, the DBJ undertook several measures to support our MSMEs, such as reduction of interest rates on loans and granting moratoriums on over 30,000 loans valued at $14.9 billion. This includes $2 billion of microloans. Between April 2020 and January 31, 2020, the DBJ approved $4 billion in loans supporting $5.7 billion in investment and 2,745 potential new jobs. The DBJ is currently executing a US $15 million project funded by the World Bank, which is focused on improving access to finance for MSMEs. A key component of this project is the expansion of the credit enhancement facility for MSMEs that are deficient in collateral. Between April 2020 and January 2021, 163 guarantees valued at $851.2 million Jamaican dollars have been issued, supporting loans of $1.5 billion to the MSME sector. The government has secured funding of US $25 million, or approximately 3.7 billion Jamaican dollars, from the IDB for the World Bank, from the IDB and the World Bank, to increase the capital of the credit enhancement facility and expand the guarantees available to MSMEs. As of January 31st, 2020, the DBJ introduced a new guarantee scheme that is less bureaucratic. If the approved financial institution approves the loan, it is insured under the new scheme. There is no more paperwork required from the DBJ. A greater number of MSMEs are benefiting from this, as 98% of loans are made to MSMEs. Also, loans guaranteed have been increased up to 90% from 80% in special cases, with a maximum of 30 million for any one loan, up from 15 million previously. The DBJ will be launching Go Digital on the 1st of April 2021, a new and revolutionary technical assistance program geared to promote the adoption of cutting-edge technology practices among MSMEs by providing vouchers that are redeemable at the approved business development organization. The Go Digital vouchers will cover digital transformation, that is, digitizing of key processes such as payments and accounting systems, integration of new software tools to improve productivity, and web-based marketing packages that would be the development and improvement of websites, digital marketing, app development, social media content, etc. Madam Speaker, the Cabinet recently gave approval for the establishment of an enterprise team to proceed with the sale of over 1,000 acres for the Bernard Lodge development. The DBJ is supporting the enterprise team. The Greater Bernard Lodge project seeks to create sustainable communities where residents will live, raise families, work, play, and retire in dignity. The objective of the enterprise team is to oversee the sale of discrete lots to serious developers through a competitive tender process, both international and local. The Greater Bernard Lodge project is supported and guided by a master development plan which outlines the location of the development blocks and permitted development types as follows: residential blocks for detached units and townhouses, light industrial, commercial, and mixed use. I am projecting that by the latest June of this year, the tender process will be open. Interested persons should bear in mind that the land is not for speculation. Purchase of the land carries an impact fee and a return clause if the development does not begin within the specified time. Infrastructure works on water and sewage are already underway. Madam Speaker, this is a project that we announced, and I am saying now that the project is well underway. So, Madam Speaker, when you hear me announce the development for the new township in Falmouth, in another year or so, I'll be coming back to you to tell you how far we are. This project, Madam Speaker, was a little bit more complicated because, as you may recall, we had to do relocation of persons who were on the land. We had to resolve claims that were before existing on the lands, and we had to secure infrastructure, water and sewage in particular, and those are complete, those are done. And Madam Speaker, this is a project that will bring a new kind of living to Jamaica. We have designed it in such a way that it is sustainable, both from an environmental standpoint, but it will also be sustainable from an economic and social standpoint. We have provided for the green areas, the sporting areas, the recreation areas, the schools, the social services. For water, it will have a nice pond. You know, it will be a really lovely place when it is finished. And the reason why we're going through an open divestment process, Madam Speaker, is that, you know, we don't want persons to come in pretending that they are developers and they can't develop. They don't have the financing, they don't have the experience, and they don't have the intention. They just want to buy the land to hold it for speculative purposes. We are only divesting to serious developers who can start the land within the start building on the land within the shortest period of time. And in any way, it doesn't make sense to buy the land and you're not ready to go because there is an impact fee that you will have to pay if you buy the land. So the project is designed for immediate use. Madam Speaker, the most frustrating thing to see is a subdivision and you have people making the investment to build, good houses, and then you see 2 or 3 lots not developed and bushed and harboring criminals and incomplete and it's disorganized and the place just look chaka-chaka. We are finishing with that kind of development. Madam Speaker, this will have 15,000 houses in it. So when we made the commitment that we are going to build 70,000 houses, we are well on the way. And this is not going to be a burden on the government because this is totally private sector driven. But the government has done it in such a way that it is easy for the private sector to participate. It is fair and transparent. Madam Speaker, the pandemic has set back plans for the public offerings of the Jamaica Mortgage Bank and the government's 19.9% share in the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Madam Speaker, this administration is still committed to creating an ownership economy which allows all Jamaicans to become part owners of the productive assets of the economy. The DBJ is quite advanced in its planning for the public offering of these assets. And as soon as we are certain of the appetite of the market to give the best value for the assets, we will proceed to offering them on the stock market. That will be another, such as the offer we did for Trans Jamaica and Wigton. And it's a great investment opportunity for the average person. And we will design them in such a way that the average Jamaican can participate in them. Madam Speaker, it is proven that access to registered title has a positive economic and social impact. In 2020-2021, the NLA has been able to enact legislative amendments to facilitate increased registration of parcels and to establish the framework for the systematic registration regime. The amendment of the Registration of Titles, Cadastral Mapping and Tenure Clarification Special Provisions Amendment Act 2020 and the Registration of Titles Amendment Act 2020 will result in a more efficient and organized approach to adjudicating land ownership, which aims to increase the level of registration. Last fiscal year, the NLA also launched the Systematic Land Registration Public Awareness Campaign with the slogan NLA plus you equal title for you. The campaign consists of radio and press advertisements in Jamaica, North America, America, and the United Kingdom. Local town criers, interviews, and local media houses have all been pulled in to get people in Jamaica and in the diaspora aware of this new process of land titling. Additionally, the agency has launched an upgraded version of Jamaica Property Sales Data, or JAMPROP, which is an online subscription service that allows subscribers to access property sales data on the entire island. The government is undertaking a major land titling effort and is targeting to deliver 20,000 titles in 3 years, with 10,000 titles being issued in year 1. Fieldwork surveys and legal teams, those are ongoing, and parts of St. Elizabeth, including Flagaman, Horton, Burnt Savannah, Masmure, or is it Maysmure? This is in Westmoreland. Known as Canaan Disciple, or Despicle. Westmoreland, these are I've been to Maysmure, but not Despicle. and Brunt Plantation, those are in Westmoreland, Manchester and Clarendon. These are districts that have all been declared as systematic adjudication areas. Furthermore, the NLA will implement an electronic title registration system available to professionals, attorneys, mortgagees, and surveyors to replace the existing paper-based system. This will result in faster processing times for the registration of transactions, for example, mortgages and transfers. So, Madam Speaker, every year we hear some promise being made about titling and giving people land, and we have heard all of those promises before, but they don't actually do them. Madam Speaker, we are doing it now. Madam Speaker, I'll say a few words on NEPA. The COVID-19 pandemic is inextricably intertwined with global environmental issues, both in terms of its origin and the implications for environmental outcomes and the future well-being of societies. Issues such as biodiversity loss brought on by increased human encroachment into wildlife habitats, climate change, air and water pollution, and waste management. Though the recovery plans that we are putting in place, we have the potential to create a recovery that is both green and inclusive. We can create opportunities for income, jobs, and growth, and at the same time accelerate action on environmental goals, both nationally and globally. Such actions will significantly enhance our resilience in the face of accelerating environmental challenges. The designation of nationally protected areas, both terrestrial and marine protected areas, has become an important tool that several countries globally are utilizing for the conservation and maintenance of biodiversity in all its aspects, including the diversity of species and ecosystems. According to the United Nations Environment Programme and the International Union for Conservation of Nature, between 2010 and 2019, protected areas expanded from covering 14.1% to 15.3% of global land and freshwater environments, excluding Antarctica, and from 2.9% to 7.5% of the marine realm. While there has been progress, these are still short of the global targets set in 2010 of 17% of terrestrial and inland water and 10% of coastal and marine areas to be protected. To be meaningful and enforceable, mere designation of national protected areas is not enough. It needs to be supported by a legal and policy framework to materialize significant biodiversity conservation targets. Madam Speaker, the government will be promulgating a new Protected Areas Act to enable the creation of a national protected areas system that is representative of Jamaica's biological and cultural heritage. The legislation will include harmonized provisions for management of private lands in protected areas under a new comprehensive statute, while at the same time preserving specific statutory functions under enactments. NEPA, in consultation with partner agencies, has so far selected 15 areas which are proposed for protection. Some of these lands are under private ownership, while others are owned by various arms of the government. There are no distinctions made in law regarding who the land is owned by for the declaration of protected areas. Madam Speaker, there are several incentives, partnerships, and acquisition options that are available to the government to work with private owners to ensure that these sites are effectively managed and protected. These include acquisition, tax and other incentives, and exchange swaps of land. And I point out here, Madam Speaker, that in this framework, the government will be seeking to develop a special fund to enable it to acquire lands that are considered environmentally sensitive. Madam Speaker, we have seen in recent times where a developer has lands, they are environmentally sensitive, but they have not been declared as such. They have certain assets on them, and then you have to, we have seen in certain times. But on reflection on this problem, you know, the government should really seek to own assets that have these very high environmental sensitivities. If they stay in private hands, you are not always guaranteed, even when you pass the law, that they will be protected and used. So, you know, it's a long-term project, obviously, and we would have to do it according to what our fiscal space allows, but it is a demonstration of our commitment. It's a demonstration of our commitment that lands that are environmentally sensitive, that we intend to protect, we should own them and take them away. Yeah. Madam Speaker, we can use the pandemic to recover faster, stronger, better, and greener. Madam Speaker, I have directed the NEPA, in collaboration with the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation and other stakeholders to prepare a master plan for Halfway Tree and Constant Spring Road local planning areas. Halfway Tree is a major commercial node, and there is now a need to make it a smart, sustainable, resilient, technology-driven, and a model 21st century inclusive community. Over the years, Halfway Tree has been affected by many issues, including uncoordinated development, traffic congestion, inadequate parking, lack of public open space and landmarks, and improper waste disposal and collection. The preparation of the master plan will provide a holistic and sustainable approach to land use planning and address issues relating to building densities, heights, economy, physical and social infrastructure, and protection of the natural environment. The Constant Spring Road corridor adjoins or is in close proximity to this centrally located Halfway Tree local planning area, therefore providing the synergy to plan both areas together. Over the years, the Constant Spring area has experienced an increase in development and has come under extreme pressure with land use conflicts, transportation issues and traffic congestion, insufficient parking, solid waste disposal issues, lack of green space, among other issues. The expected outcomes for these new planning directives would see detailed spatial planning policies, proposals, and land use, zoning, and model plans, increased density and heights in selected areas, increased investment, employment, and economic growth and development, protection of existing residential amenities and creation of mixed-use spaces, provision of developed and interconnected green spaces, greater pedestrianization and landscaping, and improved infrastructure and service facilities. Madam Speaker, we will recover with plans and policies that are designed for orderly development. Madam Speaker, I'm certain that as soon as this development plan is complete, both for Canton Spring and Halfway Tree, you're going to see massive reinvestments in those areas. I am going to NWC. Arising from the catastrophic break of the major transmission line at Ferry in December 2018 and compounded by extensive droughts in 2019, which extended to the middle of 2020, large sections of the KMA and many other sections of the island suffered from inadequate water supplies. Despite the limited financial resources, the NWC has responded, and having completed the replacement of the Mandela pipelines, the flow to the corporate area doubled from 2.5 million gallons per day to 5 million gallons per day. We are now midway in the December to May dry season, and both raw water storage facilities are full. This has been achieved because the NWC has carefully monitored the inflows of the Hermitage and Mona raw water impoundments and synchronized with the production of treated water, with any resulting shortfalls being addressed by reconfiguring the distribution network. Madam Speaker, significant progress was made during 2020-2021 in replacing aged water and sewage lines in the corporate area. Over 40 kilometers of large diameter aged water and sewage lines were replaced along Constant Spring and Hagley Park roads, as well as along Mandela Highway. This has improved the resilience of the major conveyance networks in Kingston and St. Andrew. The NWC can now move water much more efficiently from its Constant Spring water treatment plant and the Rio Cobre production sources into the heart of the corporate area. Similar works are now in progress from 6 miles along the full length of Spanish Town Road, Beeson Street, and will terminate at the intersection of Blake Road and South Camp Roads. A total of approximately 20 kilometers of transmission, secondary, and distribution mains are being installed at a cost of 4 billion Jamaican dollars. This will not only improve the NWC's capacity to transmit water to the downtown Kingston business district, but will also, on completion, at the beginning of 2020, see significant improvements in the supply to all adjoining communities, including Riverton Meadows, Weymouth Drive, Coburn Gardens, Payne Avenue, Waltham Park, Lower Trench Town, Denham Town, Tivoli Gardens, Kingston Gardens, Central Kingston. Similar projects are being formulated for Red Hills, Arthur Wint Drive, Port Royal, and sections of the north coast between Miami Bay and Falmouth. Madam Speaker, you know, many Jamaicans, you know, the people in our inner city, I mean, they put up with a lot. You know, my community of Olympic Gardens, sometimes they don't have any water in their pipes. And it is, you know, a regular feature. And you wonder how how they survive. In 2 years ago when the pipe broke, the main broke on Spanish Town Road, right in Christmas, they were without. And in the drought, it really hits them bad. Madam Speaker, what we have just done in putting in this main is what you call a nation-building exercise. If you consider that these mains were laid sometimes right around the time of our independence, some of them are 60 years old or more. We were laying these mains when we were building Jamaica as an independent nation. They have reached their useful life, and we have to go through that exercise again. Some of these mains have corroded to the point where no water can go through them. Some of them have corroded to the point that if water goes through them, they'll collapse. So we have to replace them, and we have started that project. And I made sure to read this out because the people in the communities that I've called and others that I haven't called, they have been suffering. They have been suffering, and this is a start to ensuring that we can give them decent supply of water. Madam Speaker, the total assets of the National Housing Trust are projected to increase to $313 billion by March 2022, of which 91% or $285 billion will be in housing. That is comprised of mortgages and works in progress. The growth in assets has been significant when compared to March 2016, when total assets were $237 billion, with 84% or $200 billion representing investments in housing. Madam Speaker, the NHT's annual housing expenditure has grown from an average of $20 billion in 2014-2016 to a projected $58 billion in 2021-2022. We are moving in the right direction. Madam Speaker, the government, recognizing the critical contribution of housing to economic and social development, has put down the challenge to the housing sector to substantially increase housing starts. I have held several meetings with the private sector and public sector stakeholders as well, including the NHT, to explain the government's housing thrust. I should remind the House, Madam Speaker, that the government had also issued a further challenge that the majority of the houses that we want to be built should be in the price region of $8 million or less. Both the opposition spokesperson on finance and the leader of the opposition raised the issue of equity in the NHT. Madam Speaker, we recognized this issue a long time ago, and which is why the Minister of Finance and myself agreed when he was the chairman of the NHT that we would conduct a review of the NHT to come up with ways to address the issue of how the NHT has turned out to be inequitable. It's hard to say that because, I mean, the consciousness, the understanding of the NHT is that it is a good thing. It is getting houses for everyone. But if you look at who is getting the house and how the benefit is distributed and who can access the benefit, there are issues there that we need to address. It is not being fair to the poorest. And I don't think that needs to be debated. It is the reality. And I believe the Parliament should find a way to address these issues. The report is there. I don't believe things have changed too much that would make the report invalid. I think the report is still valid, and we should go and debate that report. And I'm happy to hear the opposition thinking in that way, because that was part of our reservation as to how we go about making changes to the NHT, such a massive and politically sensitive organization. If there is a meeting of the minds, I think we can make real change to the NHT that would see an expansion of access. within the next 2 months, Madam Speaker, the NHD will be advertising for local and foreign developers who are interested in participating in housing projects in the $8 million segment of the market. I have directed the NHD to focus its resources in that area. We need to build houses that people who are building houses in riverbanks and gully courses and perch precariously on hillsides, that they can say, all right, instead of me go and build here, let me go and invest in a structured, organized community. And that is the direction that has been given to the NHD. There are challenges, there are supply-side challenges, as you well know. I believe we do have experienced developers here. As you had pointed out, we built Portmore, we built Mona, so we do have the experience. We haven't used it in a while, but I think with this new thrust, we're going to see new players and old players emerge, coming into the market to increase the housing supply. Madam Speaker, we are cognizant of the position some mortgagors have found themselves in over the last several months as a result of the pandemic. To help these mortgagors, the National Housing Trust implemented the Fresh Start Rescheduling Facility in May 2020. The facility provided financial relief for mortgagors with arrears of 90 days or more, as at February 29, 2020, by allowing them a one-off special arrangement that saw the amount owing being recalculated. Those who have benefited from the facility saw their arrears added to the principal and their loan amount readjusted. Some mortgagors were also eligible to receive a reduction in interest rates based on their income, as well as an extension in the tenure of the mortgage. So it's a creative scheme to technically refinance the loan and remove the outstanding portion, which would show you being delinquent. And it's very creative, and it has worked. The allowance improved their ability to service their loans. To date, a total of 1,966 applications have been processed under the Fresh Start program, which expired on September 30th, 2020. Madam Speaker, mortgagors who are in need of further assistance can continue to benefit from other established relief programs maintained by the NHD. To date, the following applications have been processed under the special loan moratorium. That's 2,057 applications, regular loan modifications, 2,308, and regular moratorium, 202. Madam Speaker, since 2016, some public sector mortgagors have been receiving their contribution refunds in cash annually. This cash refund is unlike what obtains for regular mortgagors whose contribution refund is paid directly to the NHD mortgage account. When this provision was initially established, it was based on the economic situation which resulted in a wage freeze under the Memorandum of Understanding between the public sector, workers, and government. In my 2018-2019 budget presentation, I spoke to extending the cash refund granted by the NHD to eligible public sector workers, and indicated that the period of extension would end this year, 2021. Madam Speaker, with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, such an extension is once again needed. Consequently, the NHD will extend the cash refund granted to public sector workers up to April 2022. Madam Speaker, as part of the COVID-19 efforts, the NHD will allow persons who have been unemployed for a period of 12 months or more to access their contribution refunds 1 year in advance. Now, when you add all of this to the care package, these things that other agencies of government are doing. I mean, this government really cares. So the contributors' refund, which would be due, say, for example, for the year 2013, that contributor, if they have lost their job, could access their refund for 2013, but they could also access their refund for 2014. The proposed implementation date for this initiative is July 2021. The initiative will expire in July 2022. So this is a way to get some cash into your hands if you're having difficulty, if you lost your job and you need some cash. So these are all very creative ways that the government has come up with to help people to survive the pandemic. In November 2017, the report of the Strategic Review Commission was presented to me and subsequently tabled in Parliament. Arising from recommendations in the report, the Trust has examined and implemented some of these suggestions. In terms of portfolio management, the Trust has taken steps to monetize its mortgage portfolio to ensure that the level of housing expenditure is well maintained. The NHD holds the largest mortgage portfolio in Jamaica. The Trust has been strategically leveraging that position through the sale of portions of this mortgage portfolio, which has allowed capital to be used in more effective ways. In terms of construction management, greater emphasis will be placed on housing delivery through initiatives such as the Developers Program and the Guaranteed Purchase Program. This is what I had spoken about earlier, where the NHD will be inviting interested parties to participate. Under this program, the NHD guarantees the purchase of the units, but sets the price, and the price is $8 million or lower. So if you are a developer, you have a project, you meet the requirements, the NHD is guaranteeing that if you bring those houses onto the market at the price point, the NHD will purchase them. That essentially takes away the risk from you. In terms of contribution management, there will be the implementation of strategies which will encourage improved collections and promote stronger partnership among government entities which fall within the ambit of the payroll amalgamation services. Madam Speaker, the NHD will contribute their target to the 70,000 housing solutions. They are tasked with contributing 43,000 housing solutions to that 70,000 housing. And they are well on the way to doing that. Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition made some comments regarding Jamaica's standing in diplomatic relations and foreign affairs. And I reflected, I went home and I looked back at it and I said, I am not one to blow a trumpet. I don't do that. I don't go around. I don't go around,
They ring a bell. That's their metaphor.
I don't go around doing self-promotion. But Madam Speaker, I think the record has to be set clear about Jamaica's standing on the global stage. since the Jamaica Labour Party government has taken office. Madam Speaker, in 2018, Jamaica was the only small island country invited to the G7 summit. Not just invited, participated. We were there. We represented. Jamaica represented the positions, issues and concerns on the global stage. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, again, we were invited to Argentina for the G20 summit. The Minister of Finance was there. And it was an amazing experience to see a world leader saying so big up Jamaica. But, Madam Speaker, we participated, we brought the concerns of small economies, small countries, we represented there.
That's correct.
Madam Speaker, we were invited to the BRICS.
Yes.
Again, to do that, Madam Speaker, you know, I was invited to be the...
No, but just listen.
Madam Speaker, we were Jamaica. I was invited to co-chair with President Macron of France, the UN's special initiative on increasing climate financing action.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, again, co-chair with Prime Minister Trudeau. Friends of the SDGs, leveraging creative solutions for financing and sustainable development. International fora, international work. Madam Speaker, I wouldn't even bother go to all of those other things. Madam Speaker, I think I sat down and I looked and I'm saying to myself, which other recent Prime Minister? And I said, I want the leader of the opposition to just tell me. Madam Speaker, some of the conversation that is carried reflects a lack of, I would say it's more a lack of research. Madam Speaker, you know, I tell you something. You know, about Jamaica, how we have carried Jamaica's regard in the world. I was one of 5 prime ministers invited by Prime Minister Modi to speak at their special event at the UN, marking the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi. And New Zealand. So, Madam Speaker, when Jamaica is one of the countries selected for a vaccine gift, and we don't go out and make all kinds of noise and public relations about it, Jamaica has quietly, steadily, consistently represented on the international stage, and our voice is respected. It is respected because we bring a practical approach to the problems of development, and the way in which we have conducted our economic and social policies here are regarded as examples to the rest of the world. Madam Speaker, there is not only one point of view for respect.
That's right.
Madam Speaker, they get respect by pursuing what I call the old way. They are still on the old path, holding on to old ideas. Recognizing that the world has changed and moved beyond that. Jamaica's foreign policy has been and continues to be principle-based. Principle-based. Right? Madam Speaker, we have pursued a foreign policy that will promote our development. We are not going to get tied up in ideology, and we are practical. So, Madam Speaker, brand Jamaica is safe in our hands. Oh, you want me to say? All right. Madam Speaker, after all the finance minister has said, and I have said, we can arrive at a certain conclusion. We can conclude that good policy pays dividends. Just this afternoon, the international credit rating agency Fitch affirmed Jamaica's credit rating at B+. With all that's going on, with the outlook remaining stable. No doubt, they have been paying attention to the budget debates.
Yes, absolutely. We're going what you want.
Obviously, they have been listening to what we are saying and hearing our confirmation and affirmation of good fiscal policy. And so, Madam Speaker, again, we are reaping the dividends. We can conclude that this government is a government of incredible dexterity and facility to manage several crises. Pandemic, economic, environmental, weather events, and we have managed them all very well.
Seamlessly.
All of them. We have been managing these crises, balancing competing interests, maintaining equity and transparency, exercising patience and restraint, and still show material solidarity and care for the people of Jamaica. We can conclude, in the midst of crisis, this government has not faltered, and we are turning crisis into opportunity. We are using the challenges thrust upon us by the pandemic as an opportunity to reconfigure and reorganize our society into a smarter, greener, safer, and more caring society. we do not take this for granted. We will never forget the poor, the vulnerable, and the weak in our society. Our task is to empower the people of this country with equal opportunity, world-class infrastructure, access to technology, access to finance, and the opportunity to fulfill their deepest aspirations. Madam Speaker, we do not do this of our own volition. We consider this to be God's work, and we are instruments of his execution. With our faith and trust in God, in the words of Jeremiah, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Jamaica will recover stronger, faster, better, greener, fairer, more orderly, more sustainable. Jamaica will recover. God bless you. God bless.